Chapter 41. One of them was naturally Jiang Chun. The other was a masked man whose face could not be seen clearly. Upper Tao realm. True Qi has already transformed into spirit power, Jiang Chun said in a low voice. Curling up the corners of his mouth, he said, "A person like you can't be a nobody in the Azure Cloud Town. Kill." The masked man did not say much. With a roar, spirit power erupted from his palm. The spirit power was like a cold light that quickly condensed in the air and turned into 3 snow-white swords. In a triangular formation, they flew towards Jiang Chun. 9 words of battle, guarding like a mountain. Jiang Chun's eyes narrowed. A bell appeared on his body, and an illusion of a mountain condensed behind him. Boom! However, the other party's strength was indeed too strong. When the first sword fell, it shattered the bell on Jiang Chun's body. When the second sword had struck, the shadow of the mountain behind Jiang Chun was smashed into pieces. The moment the third sword fell, if not for Jiang Chun's quick reaction and moving to the side, his head would have been split open. Fengyu. At this moment, Jiang Chun's face was as black as ink and a cold voice came out of his mouth. Bai Fengyu had just arrived, and after hearing Jiang Chun's tone, she understood what Jiang Chun meant. However, as soon as Bai Fengyu took a step, the masked man jumped up and left. It seemed that the other party knew that Bai Fengyu was very strong and did not want to fight with her in Qingyan Town. "Master, are you okay?" At this moment, Bai Fengyu walked to Jiang Chun's side and asked softly. "I'm fine." Jiang Chun shook his head. He had condensed 35 drops of essence blood. No matter how strong the other party's attack was, it would be difficult to hurt him. However, in front of so many people, he was repelled and almost killed. Jiang Chun's old face could not bear it. "Very good," Jiang Chun said coldly. "Qingyan Banquet? Or Hongmen Banquet? Let me have a look." After that, Jiang Chun got up and waved at Jiang Lu, who had just arrived. "Let's go to the Qingyan Banquet." The Qingyan Banquet was a banquet for the Qingyan Town Martial Pavilion to invite the major sects around. The theme of the Azure Cloud Banquet was very simple. It was to exchange pointers and discuss cultivation. The Martial Pavilion would even set up some prizes at the Azure Cloud Banquet for the juniors to compete for. The main characters of the Qingyan Banquet were naturally not from the older generation, but from the younger generation. When Jiang Chun's group of 3 arrived at the Full Moon restaurant, Wu Mu was already waiting for them at the entrance. Wu Mu hurried over as soon as he saw Jiang Chun. He whispered in Jiang Chun's ear, "Be careful. The secret pavilion has a bounty on you. They want your life." "I've already met him," Jiang Chun said softly. The masked man on the street earlier was probably from the secret pavilion. The secret pavilion, Martial Pavilion, and Elixir Pavilion were the top sects in the godless mainland. However, the secret pavilion was in the dark and never appeared in public. And the things that the secret pavilion did were even more despicable. The secret pavilion only trained assassins and would only accept bounties to kill people. No matter if the person you wanted to kill was good or bad, righteous or evil, as long as the secret pavilion accepted it, they would assassinate you to the end. Jiang Chun did not expect that someone would actually place a bounty on his head in the secret pavilion. "I've already sent people to guard the Full Moon restaurant. I hope that you can be safe at this Qingyan Banquet." Wu Mu sighed. After Wu Mu and Jiang Chun signed the master-servant contract, his life and death were in Jiang Chun's hands. If Jiang Chun died, even if Wu Mu was unharmed, he would die with him. "Do you know who placed the bounty?" Jiang Chun asked. "I'm not sure. The secret pavilion never provides information about their employers." Wu Mu frowned. "But I think it should be Star Sword Sect, Alliance Conference, and 8 Paths Sect. Let's wait and see," Jiang Chun said. Then, under Wu Mu's lead, Jiang Chun's group entered the Full Moon restaurant's 2nd floor. The Full Moon restaurant had a total of 3 floors. The 9th-rate sect sat on the 1st floor, the 8th-rate sect sat on the 2nd floor, and the 7th-rate sect sat on the 3rd floor. When Jiang Chun's group sat on the 2nd floor, several dissatisfied voices came from downstairs. "Chuanzuan sect is a 9th-rate sect. How can they sit on the 2nd floor? Pavilion Master Wu Mu, what is the meaning of this? Chuanzuan sect has been in decline for a long time. and can't even be considered a ninth-rate sect. Not only did you invite them to the Qingyun banquet, you even let them sit on the second floor? Jiang Chun didn't pay any attention to him. He even ignored him. After all, in his eyes, the sect sitting on the first floor could not threaten him at all. Jiang Chun, you have to enjoy this Qingyun banquet. At this moment, a cold voice came from the third floor. The voice seemed to be accompanied by a sword light, which was very harsh to the ears. If ordinary people heard this voice, their ears would probably explode. Noisy, Jiang Chun said coldly, raising his eyebrows. I will naturally enjoy the Qingyun banquet, of course. I hope you enjoy it more than I do. Oh, without Xuanzuan's sect protecting spirit array. Who can protect you? Another voice could be heard. The words were filled with murderous intent. Who do I need to protect me? Jiang Chen's eyes flashed coldly as he looked up at the third floor. Jiang Chen's eyes flashed, and a rune appeared in his pupils. Through the partition of the third floor, he saw that the speaker was from the Union. Jiang Chun, let me ask you one thing. Did you kill my 8 Paths sect master? 8 Paths sect's disciple also spoke, but there was no murderous intent. However, his questioning tone made Jiang Chun very uncomfortable. I killed him, so what? I didn't kill him, so what? The corners of Jiang Chen's mouth rose slightly, and he said mockingly, My life is right here. If you want it, come and take it. So it was you who killed him. 8 Paths sect's disciple shouted angrily. At this moment, Wu Mu came up, and after a light cough, he said, Everyone, the Qingyun banquet has begun. Please enjoy your meal. As he spoke, the maids served some delicacies and some good wine. Of course, the people who came here were all cultivators, so they didn't care about the food and wine. They just put it in front of them to look at. Pavilion Master Wu Mu, what is the prize for this year's Qingyun banquet? The new sect master of Star Sword sect asked. Every year, there would be a prize for the Qingyun banquet. The prize for last year's Qingyun banquet was a spirit concentrating pill. The spirit concentrating pill could only be refined by a 5th-grade alchemist and was very rare in the world. In the Qingyun town area, the highest was Tong Sang, but he was only a 3rd-grade alchemist. Therefore, in the Qingyun town area, the spirit concentrating pill could be said to be a sky-high item. Especially for those in the upper level of the physique realm, a spirit concentrating pill could help them break through and step into the mental realm. This year's Qingyun banquet naturally has a prize. Wu Mu smiled. This year's prize is a drop of Kirin blood. What? Kirin blood? Kirin blood? Chapter 42. In an instant, everyone in the Full Moon restaurant became excited and exclaimed in surprise. Even Bai Fingyu was stunned for a moment. She did not expect that Qilin blood would appear in such a small place. Only Jiang Chun was indifferent and said softly, It's just the blood of an inferior Qilin. It's not pure Qilin blood. Qilins are divine beasts and are rarely seen in the world. In the eyes of the world, inferior Qilins are considered real Qilins, Bai Fingyu said. What's the use of it? It's just a hybrid. Jiang Chun curled his lips. Back then, when Jiang Chun was in the 9th heaven, he would go and kill a Qilin for fun. Now, it was just a drop of inferior Qilin blood. Jiang Chun was not interested in it at all. However, Jiang Chun still decided that he had to get the inferior Qilin blood. This was because Qilin blood had a great effect on improving one's physical body. Ordinary people could be reborn after bathing in a drop of Qilin blood. As for cultivators, if they could bathe in Qilin blood, their physical body would definitely grow by a lot or even transform. Of course, Jiang Chun did not need the inferior Qilin blood himself. After all, he had already condensed 35 drops of essence blood in his body. He did not need the blood at all. However, for Zhang Lu, who had the immemorial sacred body, the inferior Qilin blood could be said to be of great help to his current realm. Zhang Lu, if you bathe in this hybrid Qilin blood, your physical body will be even stronger. Not to mention people in the same realm. Even those who are one realm higher than you will not be able to compare to your physical body, Jiang Chun said. When Zhang Lu heard this, he scratched his head and said, Really? Then I want this inferior Qilin blood. If you want it, go get it yourself. Jiang Chun smiled and said, Kid, Ever since you activated the immemorial sacred body, your cultivation has improved by leaps and bounds. Now, you're almost catching up with me. It's okay. Jianglu's face turned red, and he said weakly, I just broke through to the mental state yesterday. No matter what kind of sacred body it was, the cultivation speed of a sacred body was far beyond that of ordinary people. Therefore, Jiang Chun didn't find it strange at all that Jianglu, who was originally only in the spirit realm, had broken through to the will realm in just a few days. In fact, if Jiang Chun hadn't been busy with his own cultivation during this period of time, he wouldn't have given Jianglu any pointers. Otherwise, Jiang Chun's current state would not only be at the lower level of the thought state. Pavilion Master Wu Mu, don't keep us waiting. Let's get started. That's right. We don't care, but the juniors are anxious. At that moment, some people from other sects spoke up. They were very interested in the blood of the Kirin. Furthermore, all of the people that spoke were filled with confidence in their disciples. All right, let's begin. Wu Mu nodded. Wang. As soon as he finished speaking, a battle ring rose from the middle of the full moon restaurant and penetrated through 3 floors. In this way, everyone present could see the scene on the stage. Same old rules. If you want the blood of the inferior Qilin, you'll have to step onto the stage and accept challenges or challenge others, Wu Mu said. Until no one challenges you or no one dares to accept your challenge. Oh? Are they going to fight for the first place? Jiang Chen muttered. He glanced at Bai Fengyu and wondered if he should let Bai Fengyu step onto the stage. With Bai Fengyu's strength, if he stepped onto the stage, the blood of the inferior Qilin would definitely be his. Star Sword Sect, Lin Mo. At that moment, Lin Mo stepped onto the stage. His eyes flashed coldly as he stared at Jiang Chun. Hey, little brat, I've already let you go twice. Are you still thinking of killing me? Jiang Chun curled his lips and smiled at Lin Mo. He even hooked his finger. I want to challenge him. Lin Mo had seen Jiang Chun's strength and naturally didn't dare to challenge Jiang Chun. Therefore, he chose Jianglu. Jianglu, go easy on him when you go up. Give him some face. Jiang Chun smiled. You've just awakened your divine body and can't control your strength well. Be careful not to kill him. Okay, I'll be careful. Jianglu nodded. As soon as he finished speaking, Jianglu took a step forward and rushed onto the stage. Jiang Chun, I'll defeat your Chuanzuan sect's disciple today. I'll come and fight you later, Lin Mo said coldly. Boom. However, as soon as Lin Mo finished speaking, everyone saw Jianglu throw a punch. He didn't use any martial arts techniques, but the power of this punch caused the air to distort. The fist radiance was vast and mighty, and the reddish-gold radiance flickered. Under this punch, Lin Mo didn't even have the chance to resist and was directly sent flying. He just said that he wanted to defeat him. Now, he didn't even have the chance to attack and was sent flying by a punch. How embarrassing. The group of people was stunned, especially those from Star Sword Sect. Each of them had a strange and awkward expression on their faces. Jiang Chun, I can't control it once I attack. At that moment, Jianglu's face darkened as he said angrily, I don't know what's going on. The moment I attack, the power in my body explodes. I can't control it at all. I'll teach you properly when we get back, Jiang Chun said with a smile. He looked at the group of people from Star Sword Sect and asked, Still want to fight? This is the weakest disciple of my Chuanzuan sect. What's there to be proud of after winning 1 round? Lin Mo isn't the strongest disciple of Star Sword Sect. The people from Star Sword Sect shouted angrily and then sent out another disciple. In the end, this disciple was also sent flying by Jianglu's punch. What's wrong with this kid? Without using any martial skills, how can a single punch be so powerful? The crowd was in a mess. They looked at the honest Jianglu in the ring and thought to themselves, is he pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger? Jiang Chun, I don't want to fight anymore. Suddenly, Jianglu looked at Jiang Chun with a strange expression and said weakly, the power in my body is getting more and more violent. I can't control it anymore. I'm afraid that I'll really kill someone with the next punch. Oh, you didn't use your full strength before? Jiang Chun asked. Yes, you asked me to be gentle, so I use 70% of my strength. But I'm afraid I won't be able to control it anymore. Jiang Lu said. It's okay, continue. Jiang Chen smiled and said, it's not your fault even if you kill him. The crowd heard the conversation between Jiang Chun and Jiang Lu, and their faces darkened. Especially the people from Star Sword Sect. 2 of their disciples were sent flying by Jiang Lu's punch. In the end, Jiang Lu said that he only used 70% of his strength. Was this a slap in the face? Lin Xiao, you go. At this moment, Star Sword Sect sent out their strongest disciple, Lin Xiao, who was at the upper level of the thought state. Lin Xiao was very famous among the major sects in the Qingyan town area. His falling rain sword could be said to be superb. Even the older generation had to retreat 3 feet, not daring to face his blade head-on. Jiang Lu, right? So arrogant. I'll see how you deal with this later. Lin Xiao walked into the ring with a cold expression. He had a slender figure, a pair of sword-like eyebrows, and a well-defined face. He could be considered handsome. However, the sinister look in his eyes made people feel displeased. Chapter 43. Jiang Chun, do you really want to fight? Jiang Lu ignored Lin Xiao. Instead, he looked at Jiang Chun and said, if we really fight, he will die. Then admit defeat, Jiang Chun said with a smile. If you really don't want to fight, just admit defeat. You won't lose a piece of meat. You still want to admit defeat? You won't have the chance. Lin Xiao roared and stabbed the sword in his hand when he heard that Jiang Lu was going to admit defeat. In an instant, streaks of sword light, as fine as the spring rain, filled the entire arena. As the sword light floated, streaks of cold light appeared and spread toward Jiang Lu. Falling rain sword. The sword is like rain, penetrating every opening and impossible to guard against. What a good falling rain sword. It won't be long before Lin Xiao catches up to us, the older generation. Around them, the sects that were on good terms with Star Sword Sect all praised. However, in the next second, when Jiang Lu punched, the entire arena fell silent. A reddish-gold fist radiance exploded, as if it was made of gold. As it swept past, the sword energy that was like a drizzle of rain collapsed and dissipated into nothingness. Moreover, this punch was extremely fast. Before Lin Xiao could react, it hit his chest. Kacha. At this moment, the crowd only heard the sound of bones cracking. Lin Xiao flew out and landed on the ground with a loud bang, dead. I didn't do it on purpose. When Jiang Lu saw that Lin Xiao was dead, his face turned pale. He hurriedly explained, I wanted to admit defeat, but he didn't let me. He had to force me to make a move. You can't blame me. Jiang Lu's face was pale, and his eyes flashed with fear. Jiang Chen smiled and said, he insisted on coming to die. How can he blame you? Bullsh ***. It was originally a spar. You want to find an excuse to kill someone? A life for a life. The people of Star Sword Sect rebuked angrily, their hearts bleeding. One must know that Lin Xiao was the strongest disciple of Star Sword Sect. In the future, he would inherit the position of Star Sword Sect leader. Moreover, to nurture a prodigy required a lot of financial and material resources. Losing Lin Xiao, Star Sword Sect could be said to have gained some strength. Jiang Lu also said earlier that he wanted to admit defeat, but Lin Xiao didn't allow it. Now that Lin Xiao is dead, who is to blame? Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed, looking at the group of people from the Star Sword Sect. His voice cold. What? The young one can't do it, so the old one is going to do it? A mere 9th-rate sect. So what if I did? Chuanzuan's sect. I don't think there's any need for it to exist in this world. The faces of the Star Sword Sect's people turned ugly, and killing intent appeared. In the surroundings, there were also many sects that agreed. They were all sects that were on good terms with the Star Sword Sect. Regarding this, Jiang Chun shrugged his shoulders indifferently and stood up from his seat. A cold light flashed past his eyes as he looked straight at the new sect leader of the Star Sword Sect. If the little Star Sword Sect can't do it, then I'll let you, the old one, do it. Jiang Chun said softly. Don't you want my life? Come, I'll give you a chance. When the new sect leader of the Star Sword sect, Yang Xian, heard that, his eyes flashed with excitement. He had always wanted to avenge the thousand-men sect leader, but he could not find the opportunity. Now, he did not expect that Jiang Chun would deliver himself to his doorstep. Sect leader Jiang Chun, this matter, don't be hasty. When Wu Mu saw that, his heart was in his throat. After all, if Jiang Chun died, Wu Mu, as a servant, would be buried with him. In the eyes of outsiders, Jiang Chun was only at the upper level of the physique realm. How could he fight against Yang Xian, a cultivator at the lower level of the Dao realm? If they fought, Jiang Chun would probably be killed in a single move. As the sect leader, if I still don't do anything under such circumstances, the reputation of the Chuanzun sect will be lost. Jiang Chun smiled. Don't worry, nothing will happen. Get up here. Yang Xian shouted angrily. He was already standing in the arena. Killing intent surged in his eyes, and the 7-foot-long sword in his hand was emitting sword light. I'm coming. Don't be hasty. Jiang Chun said, are you in such a hurry to die? Other than having a tough mouth, what else do you have? Yang Xian said coldly. Boom! However, as soon as he finished speaking, he saw Jiang Chun jump into the air and land in the ring. His feet stepped on the air, and his true chi swept out, causing the entire arena to tremble. However, before Yang Xian could do anything, Jiang Chun waved his hand and said, in front of so many people, I don't think sect leader Yang Xian will bully me, right? Yang Xian was stunned for a moment. What do you mean? Although I'm the Chuanzun school's master, you're still my senior in terms of age, and your cultivation level is even higher than mine, Jiang Chun said seriously. So, as someone of the younger generation, shouldn't you at least give in to me? When the time comes, even if you defeat me, no one will say anything. What do you think? You. So what if I give you a few levels? Yang Xian was full of confidence. He even added, this is a battle to the death. How about it? If you agree, I will suppress my cultivation to the upper level of the body realm and fight you on the same level as you. All right. Jiang Chun nodded. His expression was calm, but his heart was blooming with joy. Jiang Chun knew very well that with his current cultivation, he had no chance of winning against an Origin Realm cultivator, let alone a Dao Realm cultivator. Previously, Jiang Chun had just wanted to ask Yang Xian to suppress his realm level slightly, and at that time, Jiang Chun would use some of his techniques, and he would have a chance of winning. However, Jiang Chun hadn't expected Yang Xian to be so confident. Foolish confidence, Jiang Chun muttered to himself. Then, in front of everyone, he used his true chi as a brush and ink to write a life-and-death agreement in the air. Yang Xian moved his brush, and a life-and-death agreement appeared in front of everyone as well. Everyone, please be fair. I, Yang Xian of the Star Sword sect, will enter the arena and sign a life-and-death agreement with Jiang Chun of the Chuanzun sect. This is a battle to the death. Yang Xian seemed to be afraid that Jiang Chun would go back on his word, so he didn't need to announce it loudly. This time, not only the people in the Plenolin restaurant, but even those outside who were watching the show knew about it. This is bad. This is bad. Grandmaster is going to fight to the death with Yang Xian. This won't do. Hurry up and call him over. If anything happens to Grandmaster today, the Array Pavilion will flatten the Star Sword sect. Outside the Plenolin restaurant, Lu Shan, Tong Sang, and a group of people who had secretly come to watch the show were extremely anxious. In just a few breaths' time, the various reverends and guest elders of the Pill and Array Pavilions had gathered outside the Plenolin restaurant. As long as Lu Shan and Tong Sang said the word, this group would rush in. At that time, no matter what martial pavilion or Star Sword sect you were from, as long as you dared to touch Jiang Chun, you would be razed to the ground. As for what was happening outside, Jiang Chun naturally didn't know. He was looking at Yang Xian with a leisurely expression, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, revealing a trace of contempt. Chapter 44. You're the senior. You make the first move, Jiang Chun said with a smile, and even made a please gesture. Kid, you're dead. Yang Xian roared angrily as the long sword in his hand pierced through the air. Streaks of sword light exploded in the air like lotuses. Lotus sword. 9 lotuses are born from one sword. Lotuses are different, endless. When the crowd saw Yang Xian make his move, they all exclaimed. This lotus sword was a martial technique of Star Sword sect that was not passed down to outsiders. With one sword, the sword light seemed endless. Like the 9-grade lotus, one sword split into 2, 2 into 3, until one sword split into 9 swords. However, Jiang Qin's eyes flashed with a hint of mockery as he faced the sword flowers coming at him. He stood on the spot without moving an inch. However, the essence blood in his body was burning like a raging flame. His essence, energy, and spirit burned, and a dazzling light appeared on his body. Boom! Boom! In the next instant, when the sword light hit Jiang Chun, the crowd only heard a series of explosions. Jiang Chun was completely engulfed by the radiance of the sword. He's dead. Ha, Jiang Chun, you're finally dead. At this moment, many people laughed, thinking that Jiang Chun was dead for sure. However, when the sword light dissipated, the crowd instantly fell silent. Jiang Chun stood on the spot with a smile on his face, like a strong, ancient tree. There was not a trace of injury on his body. Even his clothes were not torn. You're the legendary defenseless player? Jiang Chun teased. Do you want to try again? How is that possible? Yang Xian was shocked and could not believe that Jiang Chun was unharmed under the lotus sword. Looking at the layer of dazzling light on Jiang Chun's skin, Yang Xian seemed to have understood something. He exclaimed, "How many drops of essence blood did you condense?" That's right. The light on the surface of his body is like a divine light. This can only happen when you condense at least 18 drops of essence blood. Many people in the surroundings collected their thoughts and exclaimed once again, "Take a guess," Jiang Chun teased. "Wang." As soon as he said that, a series of rumbling sounds came from Yang Xian's body. His cultivation had previously been suppressed to the upper level of the physique realm, but now his cultivation had actually begun to rise. The older you get, the more shameless you become. Huh? Jiang Chen's face instantly darkened. He hadn't expected Yang Xian to actually release his cultivation. Yang Xian didn't say anything. He knew better than anyone that given the strength of Jiang Chen's physical body, there was no way his sword could break through Jiang Chen's defense. This battle was a battle of life and death. In the face of death, Yang Xian couldn't care less about face. His priority was to kill Jiang Chun. 9 words of battle, swift as the wind. 9 words of battle, plunder like fire. At this moment, Jiang Chun didn't dare to hesitate. While Yang Xian was releasing his cultivation, he executed 2 moves of the 9 words of battle. In the blink of an eye, a cool breeze appeared on Jiang Chen's body and enveloped him as he charged toward Yang Xian. He was like a gust of wind. As he howled, there were flames burning on his body. You want to release your cultivation? Too late. In the blink of an eye, Jiang Chen flashed past and stood in front of Yang Xian. With a cold shout, true energy gathered in Jiang Chen's hands and 2 sharp swords appeared, one black and one white. Puff! Puff! Following that, a series of muffled sounds could be heard. The black and white light danced like a dance of dawn. When the sword light dissipated and the black and white light disappeared, the crowd was shocked to see Yang Xian lying on the ground. He didn't even have the chance to release his cultivation. I won. Jiang Chen smiled and was about to leave the arena. However, at this moment, the new president of the alliance, Li Yunshan, rushed into the arena and stared at Jiang Chen. He said coldly, "I'll fight you to the death." When Jiang Chen heard this, he frowned and said, "Taking turns to fight? Do you dare?" Li Yunshan said in a low voice. He didn't hide the murderous intent in his eyes. "I don't dare." Jiang Chen suddenly laughed and said, "You're in the lower level of the Dao realm. Don't you think it's embarrassing to fight with me, who's in the upper level of the physical realm? If you don't dare, then get lost." Li Yunshan shouted angrily. However, he was praying in his heart that Jiang Chen would agree. Once Jiang Chen agreed, Li Yunshan wouldn't suppress his cultivation and would kill Jiang Chen directly. Jiang Chen knew what Li Yunshan was thinking. Naturally, he wouldn't agree. However, Jiang Chen still wanted to save face. As the sect leader, I naturally want to save face. Jiang Chen said, if I, as the sect leader, had to deal with all the big and small matters in the sect, wouldn't I lose face? Why do I need those disciples and elders? After saying that, Jiang Chen walked down the arena and said to Bai Fengyu, I'm tired. I'll leave the alliance leader to you. After saying that, Jiang Chen sat on his seat and added, Bai Fengyu, my eldest disciple, let him fight with you. In the eyes of the crowd, Jiang Chen was a little arrogant to let his own disciple fight with the alliance leader. However, when Li Yunshan heard this, his face darkened. Previously, their group had been suppressed by Bai Fengyu with a single slap at the entrance of the Chuanzuan sect. Now he wanted him to fight with Bai Fengyu? Wasn't he looking for a beating? Master, there are so many people. I don't want to fight. Bai Fengyu muttered, I want to maintain my image as a virtuous lady. I'm thinking if you should pay the tuition fee. Or should you pay more tuition fee? Jiang Chen frowned and touched his chin. 10 million supreme grade spiritual stones. What do you think? Master, don't joke around. It's just a fight. I'll go. As for the tuition fee, you can take it easy. Bai Fengyu said hurriedly. She knew that her master was a greedy person. If Jiang Chen kept increasing the price, who knew how expensive her tuition fee would be? Even if Baidi City had a strong foundation, they couldn't afford to increase the price like that. Immediately after, Bai Fengyu took a step forward. Like a butterfly, she gracefully landed on the stage. However, when she stepped on the arena, Li Yunshan ran down with a dark face and said, I admit defeat. What's going on? Li Yunshan, you're the new alliance leader. How can you be scared by a little girl? Those who didn't know what was going on were confused. They thought that Li Yunshan had embarrassed the alliance leader. Only the people from Eight Paths Sect, Star Sword Sect, and the alliance leader knew how terrifying Bai Fengyu was. Pavilion leader Wu Mu, I think the Azure Cloud Banquet should end here. Jiang Chen said, when my eldest disciple went up, no one dared to fight. The Azure Cloud Banquet's prize, the inferior Qilin blood, belongs to the Chuanzuan sect, right? Yes. Wu Mu nodded and asked someone to send the inferior Qilin blood to Jiang Chen. Immediately after, Wu Mu stood on the ring and looked around. He even took out the Martial Pavilion Branch Pavilion Master's token that represented his identity. Chapter 45. Today, Qingyan Town's Martial Pavilion announces that they will be promoted to Chuanzuan sect. 8th rate. Wu Mu said. The moment these words were said, the group of people were surprised and even puzzled. One had to know that there was a hard condition to be promoted from a 9th-rate sect to an 8th-rate sect, and that was to have 2 Dao realm cultivators in the sect. According to what the people present knew, there seemed to be no Dao realm cultivators in Chuanzuan sect. Pavilion Master Wu Mu, including Jiang Chen's eldest disciple, Chuanzuan sect only has 1 Dao realm cultivator. This doesn't conform to the rules. That's right. We all know about Chuanzuan sect's foundation. How can they be promoted to 8th rate? Many people objected, especially those from Star Sword sect and the Alliance. They shook their heads and shouted in disagreement. Who said that Chuanzuan sect only has 1 Dao realm cultivator? Do you think we're not human? At this moment, Tong Sang and Lu Shan rushed in with a large group of consecrators and guests. When they saw that Jiang Chen was safe and sound, they first heaved a sigh of relief. Then, anger appeared on their faces. Pavilion Master Lu Shan, Pavilion Master Tong Sang, you guys. Wu Mu frowned. He did not dare to do anything to Lu Shan and Tong Sang. After all, the Array Pavilion and Elixir Pavilion were the top forces of the godless continent like the Martial Pavilion. In a small place like Qingyan Town, Lu Shan, Tong Sang, and Wu Mu could be said to be the 3 giants, representing the 3 pavilions. Now, the 2 pavilion masters of the Array Pavilion and Elixir Pavilion were furious. They seemed to be here for Jiang Chen. Not long ago, my Elixir Pavilion moved into Chuanzuan sect. We eat and use Chuanzuan sect. Now, my Qingyan Town Elixir Pavilion is also a part of Chuanzun's sect. Lu Shan said seriously, if Chuanzun's sect doesn't have a Dao realm cultivator, what do you take me for? That's right. Tong Sang nodded. Tong Sang, may not be good at martial arts, but my cultivation has reached the Dao realm. As soon as these words were said, everyone was instantly in chaos. Even Wu Mu was dumbfounded. He did not expect Tong Sang and Lu Shan to join Xuanzun's sect. With the Elixir Pavilion and Array Pavilion backing them, who would dare to touch Xuanzun's sect? At least in this Qingyan Town area, I'm afraid no one would dare to move. The two giants of Qingyan Town supported Jiang Chun. What else can the people present say? Even Wu Mu did not dare to say anything. Moreover, Wu Mu was Jiang Chen's man. Does anyone have any objections? Wu Mu asked. Then he announced that the entire sect had been promoted to an 8th-rate sect. Finally, there's an income. Jiang Chen's face was full of tears. He felt that his poor days were finally coming to an end. After the sect was promoted to an 8th-rate sect, it would receive a sum of spirit stones from the Martial Pavilion every month. The higher the rank of the sect, the more spirit stones they would receive. Sometimes, they would even receive some rare treasures. Master, you are really greedy for money. Bai Fengyu muttered. Cultivators view money as dirt. Master, you have to think things through. When Jiang Chen heard this, he was furious. He rolled his eyes and said angrily, what do you know about how hard it is to live without money? After that, the Qingyan banquet ended and everyone left. Jiang Chun left Qingyan Town with a group of people and walked towards the Chuanzun sect. Along the way, Lu Shan and Tong Sang surrounded Jiang Chun and tried their best to please him. Master, is this little girl your disciples? Tong Sang asked with a look of envy. Master, are you still accepting disciples? What do you think of me? Lu Shan pointed to himself and said, although I'm old, I'm diligent and hardworking. Why don't you accept me? You are not qualified, Jiang Chen said indifferently. As soon as these words came out, Lu Shan and Tong Sang were embarrassed on the spot, but they did not get angry. After all, in their eyes, a master should act like a master. Follow me, and you can learn anything you want. But if you want to accept disciples, you too can forget about it. Jiang Chen frowned and said, I'm afraid of losing face. Master, leave us some face. Lu Shan smiled bitterly. Tong Sang's face also darkened. He did not expect Jiang Chen to not leave them any face. However, when they thought of Jiang Chen's attainments in alchemy and array formations, the two of them immediately shut up. After half an incense stick's time, when everyone was about to return to the Chuanzun sect, Jiang Chen suddenly frowned and said coldly, You followed me all the way. Are you trying to take my life? What? Oh. For a moment, everyone's expression was tense because they did not notice that someone was following them. Chuanzun sect master, Jiang Chun. As the young master of the Qinchuan Jiang family, your talent is extremely low and is not suitable for cultivation. I really can't figure out how someone like you rose up. At that moment, the cloaked man that they met in Qingyan Town appeared. He was shrouded in a cloak, and there was a layer of black fog around him, making it impossible to see his true appearance. What does it have to do with you? Jiang Chen said solemnly, but he also understood that his actions must have attracted some people's attention. After all, from a trash to the Chuanzun sect master, and now, Jiang Chen's change was too great. I'm just curious. The cloaked man said, however, it ends here. For a person who is about to die, no matter what happened to him, I'm not interested. Buzz! Just as he said that, a black fog appeared around them. It was like a dark sky. Even if they were very close, they could not see the people around them. Even their auras were isolated. Invisible black array? Jiang Chen whispered. He also had some understanding of this array. Invisible black array was a commonly used array formation by assassins. It could block people's perception and vision, and it could even seal a space. Your life will be taken by my secret pavilion. All of a sudden, a cold voice rang out near Jiang Chen's ears. Then, a cold light, like a bolt of lightning in the darkness, pierced towards Jiang Chen's glabella. Bang! However, Before Jiangchen could make a move, a black palm appeared out of thin air, and a terrifying demonic aura burst forth. With a muffled sound, the cold light was dispersed. At the same time, a terrifying spiritual energy exploded, shattering the invisible black array. The black fog dissipated, and Mo Xingtian stood beside Jiang Chun with a cold expression. His eyes shone with a crazy, killing intent as he stared at the cloaked man not far away. "You want to kill him? Have you asked for my opinion?" Mo Xingtian said coldly. Mo Xingtian was also Jiang Chen's servant. If Jiang Chen was killed, Mo Xingtian would be buried with him. The Grand Elder of the Devil Sect, Mo Xingtian? The cloaked man seemed surprised. Perhaps he did not expect Mo Xingtian to secretly protect Jiang Chen. "It's good that you know." The killing intent in Mo Xingtian's eyes surged, but he did not make a move. Instead, he glanced at Jiang Chen and asked, "Kill? Let's capture them first. Then we'll ask them who's behind your bounty," Jiang Chen said in a deep voice. Jiang Chen wouldn't let go of those who wanted to kill him easily. Chapter 46. There was no doubt about Mo Xingtian's strength. He was at the peak of the upper-level Dao realm. In the Qingyan town area, he was the strongest. Although the assassin from the secret pavilion was strong, he was weaker than Mo Xingtian in terms of cultivation level. Although the assassin was good at assassination, under the absolute suppression of his cultivation level, the so-called assassination was just a joke. Boom! At that moment, Mo Xingtian charged out like a demonic beast with a turbulent demonic aura. Like a ghost, he appeared in front of the assassin in a flash. Poof! However, before Mo Xingtian could make a move, the assassin's chest suddenly exploded and his heart shattered. He had committed suicide. Mo Xingtian was stunned. He did not expect his opponent to be so decisive. "It's okay," Jiang Chen said in a low voice. "Assassins from the secret pavilion are like this. Once they can't kill their opponent and escape, they will commit suicide." "What should we do next?" Mo Xingtian asked. In the surroundings, Bai Fengyu and the others were also worried. They were worried about Jiang Chen's safety. After all, being targeted by the secret pavilion was not a good feeling. Only God knew when the assassin from the secret pavilion would sneak up on him. "As long as I don't leave the Chuanzun sect with the 9 mystic formations, what can the assassin from the secret pavilion do to me?" Jiang Chun said softly. Then, everyone got up and entered the Chuanzun sect. Once they returned, Jiang Chun went to the back of the mountain and carved talismans again to attract the heavenly tribulation and used the heavenly lightning to refine his body. Mo Xingtian felt bitter. After following Jiang Chun, he had been struck by lightning again and again. He had not had a good day. However, during this period of time, Mo Xingtian had accompanied Jiang Chun to be struck by lightning. The sin and darkness in his body had decreased by a lot. According to Jiang Chun, it would not be long before Mo Xingtian could cultivate the sunset demon god's inheritance. At the same time, Jiang Lu was in seclusion, using the inferior Qilin's blood to refine his body. The Archean sacred body was already very strong. Using the inferior Qilin's blood to refine his body made it even stronger. From afar, Jiang Lu's skin shone with a layer of reddish-gold divine light. It was as if his entire body was made of gold. When he used his true qi, his entire person was as bright as the sun. How do I control the power of the sacred body of antiquity? At this moment, Jiang Lu was very annoyed. Every time he attacked, the power in his body would go berserk, and he couldn't control it at all. When facing an enemy, it was still fine. In the end, he would still be killed. However, if it was a spar, the slightest carelessness could cost the other party's life. Like Jiang Lu, Bai Fengyu was in another cultivation room with a melancholy expression. She could not control the lunar power in her body. Sometimes, if she was not careful, the lunar power would explode. At the very least, it could freeze the surroundings. At the very least, it could freeze all living things to death. Thus, ever since Bai Fengyu transformed into Yin and became the great Yin Saint physique, she didn't walk around the Chuanzun sect often. She was either in seclusion or alone. afraid that the great yin energy in her body would accidentally hurt others. Jiang Chun, that stinking brat, asked me to be his disciple, but he didn't teach me at all. Bai Fengyu pouted her red lips, and there was a hint of resentment in her eyes. Sometimes, Bai Fengyu would wonder why Jiang Chun didn't have any reaction to such a beautiful woman like her. Could it be that she, Bai Fengyu, was not beautiful enough? Or could it be that Jiang Chen's standards were too high? Sometimes, Bai Fengyu would even wonder if Jiang Chen's taste was a little special. Emo Xingtian, just now my eyelids kept twitching. I kept feeling that something was wrong, as if someone was thinking about me. At the back of the mountain, Jiang Chun had just condensed the 36th drop of blood essence. His infinity technique had already been cultivated to the peak. However, Jiang Chun was very confused. Just now, his eyelids kept twitching, and he felt a little irritated. "Aren't you talking nonsense?" Emo Xingtian said snappily. "The assassins of the secret pavilion are all thinking about your life. Perhaps they are just outside the Chuanzun sect, waiting for you to come out." "Is that so?" Jiang Chen frowned. Then he stood up and said, "All right, I have cultivated to the peak of the physique realm. It's time to give my disciples some pointers." After saying that, Jiang Chen walked towards Bai Fengyu's cultivation room. After a few breaths, when Jiang Chen arrived at Bai Fengyu's cultivation room, Bai Fengyu's eyes widened, as if she was very surprised. "Master, aren't you being struck by lightning at the back of the mountain? Why are you here?" Bai Fengyu was stunned. Then, a trace of fear flashed in her eyes. She hurriedly said, "Don't bring the heavenly tribulation here. What are you thinking about? Today, I am here to give you some pointers on how to control the power of moon." Jiang Chen curled his lips, sat down cross-legged, and began to explain slowly. Jiang Chen naturally knew a lot about the sacred body of moon. With his experience, he knew all about the sacred body of the world. It was definitely more than enough to give pointers to Bai Fengyu. After half a day, Jiang Chen's saliva splattered everywhere as he continued to explain. However, Bai Fengyu was dumbfounded. She didn't understand. After another half a day, Jiang Chen stopped and asked, "Do you understand?" "No." Bai Fengyu was in a mess. She shook her head, and her face was slightly red. She was quite embarrassed. When Jiang Chen heard that, he was also dumbfounded. After explaining for half a day, she still didn't understand? Wasn't this a waste of time? You can't be taught. Jiang Chen felt depressed. He thought of his previous disciples. Each of them were amazing people, and he could just give them some pointers. Now, he didn't expect to meet such a big-breasted but brainless person like Bai Fengyu. "Master, you can't blame me for this," Bai Fengyu said weakly. "Your explanation is too profound. Can't you explain it more simply?" "More simply?" Jiang Chen rolled his eyes. He thought that he was already straightforward enough. However, it seemed that he should be more straightforward now. "There is a simple explanation." Jiang Chen suddenly smiled and said, "I was just about to give some pointers to Jiang Lu. You two have met." With that, Jiang Chen got up and brought Bai Fengyu to find Jiang Lu. "Jiang Chen, help me. I'm scared to death." Jiang Lu rushed over when he saw Jiang Chen. He said gloomily, "The power in my body is too violent. I can't control it at all." "Don't worry." Jiang Chen smiled. "Aren't I here to help you?" Then, Jiang Chen looked at Bai Fengyu and said teasingly, "You want it to be simple and straightforward, right?" "Yes." Bai Fengyu nodded. "Then you and Jiang Lu can fight." Jiang Chen smiled. "The simplest and most straightforward way to teach is to fight. In the process of fighting, feel your own power and ponder over it until you can control it." Can he beat me?" Bai Fengyu asked softly. Although Bai Fengyu was also in the Tao realm, the true qi in her body had already transformed into spirit energy. Her palm strike would probably be able to suppress a large number of them. Chapter 47. Bai Fengyu was not bragging when she said that she could suppress a group of low-level mental realm cultivators like Jiang Lu with a single finger. Your brain? Jiang Chun felt that he had no strength left. He rolled his eyes and said angrily, "Don't you know how to suppress your cultivation level? Do you still need me to say that?" "Oh!" Bai Fengyu's pretty face flushed once again. She felt like her intelligence had dropped since she had met Jiang Chun. No, Jiang Chun. Jianglu was in a difficult position. If her cultivation level is the same as mine, my punch will kill her. Little fatty, what are you talking about? Am I that fragile? Bai Fengyu said angrily. However, just as she finished speaking, Bai Fengyu seemed to have remembered that she was a virtuous lady and couldn't help but faintly smile as she softly said, "Little brother Jianglu, big sister is very powerful." Jiang Chun and Jiang Lu glanced at each other. They couldn't help but exclaim, "This is a woman." After this, Jiang Chun stood aside and watched Jiang Lu and Bai Fengyu's fight quietly. He had to admit that Jiang Lu's immemorial sacred body was too strong. Until now, he had not cultivated a single martial technique. When he fought with Bai Fengyu, he relied on his physical strength. Every punch and palm he threw out was accompanied by strong winds and flashed with a reddish-gold light. He was extremely strong. It was as if his entire body was made of gold. Bai Fengyu was not at a disadvantage when fighting with Jiang Lu at the same cultivation level. However, Jiang Chun could see that Bai Fengyu was getting weaker as time passed. That was because Jiang Lu was like a monster in human form. He was charging around. The martial techniques and moves that Bai Fengyu used were like decorations in front of Jiang Lu. When the fist and palm collided, Jiang Lu broke Bai Fengyu's martial techniques. Do you know how to be gentle to women? After half an hour, Bai Fengyu was sweating profusely. Her eyes flashed with anger. Although she was strong, it was difficult for her to defeat Jiang Lu at the same cultivation level. If they continued fighting, the person who would lose would definitely be her. Especially now, Bai Fengyu's hands were in great pain. When her fists and palms landed on Jiang Lu's body, it was as if she had hit an indestructible boulder. Moreover, there was a terrifying rebounding force that reverberated, causing her qi and blood to surge. Jiang Chun, I don't want to fight her anymore. Jiang Lu's face was also gloomy. Although he was not weaker than Bai Fengyu, the extremely cold qi on Bai Fengyu's body was constantly eroding him. Looking carefully, after a fierce battle, not only was Jiang Lu not sweating, but his whole body was trembling. A layer of frost had actually appeared on his eyebrows and hair. The two of you are on par with each other in the same realm. Jiang Chun smiled and said, "This way, I won't have to be restrained, and I won't have to worry about my strength hurting the other party. Fight with all your might and use all your strength. Only in this way can you comprehend and control it." Jiang Chun said, "Fight more, use more. Practice makes perfect." Can we change to another person? This guy is like a lump of iron. I can't hit him, and my hands hurt. Bai Fengyu shouted, "I want to change. I want to change too." Jiang Lu was also angry. He did not want to be frozen into an ice cube. "Okay, then I'll fight with you," Jiang Chun said softly. Hearing that they wanted to change, Jiang Lu and Bai Fengyu were naturally happy. "Then should we suppress our realms to the upper level of the physique realm?" Bai Fengyu said mockingly, "You're my master. As your disciple, I can't bully you." "Yes. Why don't we suppress our realms to the upper level of the physique realm?" Jiang Lu nodded. It was not that he looked down on Jiang Chun, but he was worried that he would hurt Jiang Chun. However, Jiang Chun shook his head and smiled. "Just the two of you? My upper level of the physique realm is enough to play with you until the end." "Master, you said it yourself. If you get bullied by me, you can't blame me." Bai Fengyu was excited. It seemed that he had long wanted to teach Jiang Chun a lesson. When Jiang Lu heard this, he did not care. After all, it was just a spar. At worst, he would be careful not to hurt Jiang Chun. Boom! After half an incense stick's time, Bai Fengyu and Jiang Lu finished adjusting their breathing. Then, Jiang Lu attacked and fought with Jiang Chun one-on-one. At this moment, Jiang Lu was fighting with Jiang Chun with his lower level of the mental realm cultivation. However, after just one move, when their fists collided, Jiang Lu let out a scream, and the sound of bones cracking could be heard. "Jiang Chun, what weapon are you holding in your hand?" Jiang Lu cried out. Blood was flowing from his hand, and 3 fingers were broken. That punch of his from before was like hitting a piece of iron plate, causing him to be injured from the shock. "I'm barehanded. Where did the weapon come from?" Jiang Chan said mockingly. What? Is that all the strength of the primordial sacred body? Again, Jiang Lu did not believe it. How could the primordial sacred body, which was known to be the strongest physique, lose to Jiang Chun? However, after a few breaths, Jiang Lu began to doubt his life. This was because Jiang Chun did not use any martial arts techniques. He fought with Jiang Lu barehanded. In the end, Jiang Lu had lost one of his hands. The primordial sacred body is known to be invincible in the world. Aren't you a little weak? Jiang Chun mocked. I don't know how to use the power in my body. I'm just messing around, Jiang Lu muttered. However, after this battle, Jiang Lu could feel that he had mastered the power of the primordial sacred body. At least he could now control 10% of the primordial sacred body. Go treat your injuries. When you're better, I'll teach you, Jiang Chun said. Then he looked at Bai Fengyu. When Bai Fengyu saw this, her delicate body trembled and she said, I don't want to fight with you. Didn't you want to bully me just now? What's wrong now? Are you scared? Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows and said, Hurry up. You don't bully me. Bai Fengyu stamped her feet. She was even more afraid. She could not even withstand Jiang Lu's physical body. It was as if she was hitting a boulder. Now, after seeing the strength of Jiang Chen's physical body, Bai Fengyu was already terrified. However, since her master had spoken, Bai Fengyu, as a disciple, did not dare to disobey. However, Bai Fengyu was smart. She did not fight with Jiang Chan in close combat. Instead, she used some martial arts techniques. In an instant, frost condensed in the surroundings. Like sharp needles, they dashed toward Jiang Chun. Don't use this kind of martial arts technique in the future. It's too embarrassing. Jiang Chun frowned. He could tell at a glance that Bai Fengyu was using a profound level martial arts technique. A profound level martial arts technique could be said to be the top martial arts technique in the Qingyan town area. Even in solitary North City, it was considered to be the top martial arts technique. However, in Jiang Chen's eyes, a profound level martial arts technique could only be considered to be SOSO. As for a profound level martial arts technique, could it even be considered a martial arts technique? Previously, Jiang Chun had used the dance of light and dark and the 9 words of war, which were both profound level martial arts techniques. If it were not for the fact that he had just been reborn and his cultivation was limited, he could not use a higher level martial arts technique. Otherwise, Jiang Chun would not even look down on a profound level martial arts technique. Chapter 48. Boom! At this moment, Jiang Chun pointed his finger and a mysterious light bloomed. It was like a water screen that interweaved in front of him. The gentle light was accompanied by a cold aura. The ice needles that were falling from the sky all shattered when they came into contact with the water curtain. Then, without waiting for Bai Fengyu to react, the water screen suddenly expanded and exploded with a boom. In an instant, the sky was filled with water droplets. They were like ice crystals that danced in the air and shot towards Bai Fengyu. Whoosh! Whoosh! Bai Fengyu's reaction was very fast. However, facing the dense ice crystal beads, she was still unable to dodge in time. In just 3 breaths of time, wounds appeared on Bai Fengyu's body and fresh blood flowed out. So weak! Seeing this, Jiang Chun waved his hand and the ice crystal beads in the air disappeared. He looked at Bai Fengyu with disdain and asked, How can you be so weak? Bai Fengyu opened her mouth and her face turned red. She was angry in her heart. I haven't said anything about you. I'm your disciple. You don't know how to control your strength. Bai Fengyu roared in her heart, but on the surface, she was very humble. She nodded weakly and replied, Yes, I'm very weak. Bai Fengyu was angry in her heart, and her eyes were filled with resentment. She was like a little wife that had been wronged. She was unable to imagine how a great beauty like her, who was also Jiang Chen's disciple, could bear to do this to Jiang Chun. Her entire body was covered in blood, and even her clothes were torn. In some places, her snow-white skin was exposed. Bai Fengyu had never been wronged like this since she was young. Thinking of this, Bai Fengyu's eyes turned red. She pouted and could not help but cry out. What are you doing? Jiang Chun was in a mess. He had killed millions of enemies and stepped on the bones of his enemies to reach the position of Divine King. What had he not seen before? However, Jiang Chun was truly afraid of a woman's tears. You're bullying me. Bai Fengyu choked. You won't understand what I'm saying, so I have to be simple and straightforward. Jiang Chun held his forehead and waved his hand. Let's have a real battle now. And you're saying that I'm bullying you again? Please, I'm fighting you with my cultivation at the upper level of the body state. Even though you've suppressed your cultivation, you're still at the lower level of the mind state, Jiang Chun said snappily. However, just as he finished speaking, Bai Fengyu couldn't hold it in any longer and started crying out loud. At this moment, Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. He stood in place, as if in the wind. Lu Shan, Tong Sang. Then Lu Shan and Tong Sang showed up next to Jiang Chun. Let's go. Comfort her for me, and give her some healing pills so that she won't have any scars in the future. After Jiang Chun finished speaking, he turned around and ran away. Seeing the woman's tears, he really couldn't stand it. Lu Shan and Tong Sang were dumbfounded as well. The two of them stared at each other, not knowing what to do. After all, they had never comforted a woman before. Master is really something. He even hit such a beautiful girl, Tong Sang muttered. Isn't that so? Look at how he made her cry. Lu Shan nodded. After that, the two of them left behind some medicinal pills and disappeared as they talked. At this moment, at the back of the mountain, Jiang Chun stood in front of Emo Xingtian with a serious expression. Go out secretly and find out who's the one behind the Dark Hall's bounty. It's hard to find out unless I return to the demonic sect and use their power to find out, Emo Xingtian said with a frown. The Dark Hall was famous for being mysterious. Only people from the Dark Hall knew the location of the Dark Hall. Some ordinary assassins didn't even know where the Dark Hall was located. However, the Dark Hall also had many sub-halls. Most of the assassins who tried to assassinate Jiang Chun were from the Dark Hall in Qingyan Town. Then, since it was a sub-hall, finding it was much easier. Find it at all costs, Jiang Chun said in a solemn voice. To dare find the Dark Hall to assassinate me, do they really think that I, this Jiang, am easy to bully? If it doesn't work, even the Dark Hall in Qingyan Town will be destroyed for him. Not appropriate, right? Emo Xingtian sucked in a cold breath. Destroying the Dark Hall sub-hall, this matter would blow up. Although the Dark Hall was notorious on the Godless Continent, it was at any rate a faction that could be on par with the Martial Pavilion, Array Pavilion, Pill Pavilion, and the rest. If the sub-hall was destroyed, the Dark Hall's main hall would probably have to send out a big shot. At that time, with Jiang Chun's strength and Xuanzun's sect foundation, they probably could not even block a finger of the big shot sent out by the Dark Hall. However, Emo Xingtian saw a trace of determination in Jiang Chun's eyes. It seemed like if there was no conclusion to this matter, Jiang Chun really planned on going to destroy the Dark Hall in Qingyan Town. I'll be right back. In 3 days, I'll definitely give you an answer, Emo Xingtian said hurriedly, afraid that Jiang Chun would cause some big trouble. Following that, Emo Xingtian left. Jiang Chun entered the main hall and started cultivating. Jiang Chun, who had already condensed 36 drops of blood essence, was currently merely a step away from a mind state. Spirit realm, open the spirit meridian. Body realm, condense blood essence. In this mind state, condense mind power. Mind power could be seen, but not seen. Wanting to condense mind power was really very difficult. But this was nothing to Jiang Chun at all. The only thing that gave him a headache was which one to choose among the thousands of cultivation methods. Now that I've been reborn, I have to practice every state to perfection and become the strongest, Jiang Chun thought to himself. However, in Jiang Chun's memory, there were too few cultivation methods related to the mind state. Although there were a few, Jiang Chun believed that these cultivation methods were not the strongest. Master, someone has sent news that Northming College has started recruiting students. Do you want to go? Just then, Tong Sang walked in and said, that is the college with the deepest foundation in the area of solitary North City. I'm the sect leader. Do I have to go and be a student? Jiang Chun said snappily. Naturally, he did not want to pay attention to a college in such a small place. Master, don't underestimate North Ming College. That is a branch of Sifong Divine College. Tong Sang said, some of the sect leaders of the 9th rate, 8th rate, and even 7th rate sects want to enter North Ming College to cultivate. Oh! Jiang Chen heard this and could not help but feel curious. Sifong Divine College? Who created it? Jiang Chen asked. I'm not too sure about that. Legend has it that it was created by a person called the Divine Spiritual Cultivator 2,000 years ago. Tong Sang frowned and said, but it's been too long. I don't know the truth. Divine Spiritual Cultivator? Spiritual awareness? Jiang Chen exclaimed in a low voice. Jiang Chen had ascended 3,000 years ago and entered Juxiao Divine Palace. 1,000 years after Jiang Chen's ascension, another person had ascended and called himself the Divine Spiritual Cultivator. Since this person had ascended, he had rapidly risen in Juxiao and finally became a supreme god. And what left the deepest impression on Jiang Chen was the terrifying mind power of the Divine Spiritual Cultivator. Among all the deities, the Divine Spiritual Cultivator's mind power was number one. Chapter 49. If the Sifong Divine Courtyard was really created by the Divine Will, then his inheritance should be left in the Sifong Divine Courtyard. Jiang Chen suddenly became interested and asked, how can I enter the Sifong Divine Courtyard? Air! Tong Sang was astounded, and he wiped off the cold sweat on his forehead as he said, there are a total of 4 great branches beneath the 4-direction Divine Institute. The Northern Light, Southern Emperor, Eastern Solitude, and Western Learning branches. Only the most outstanding person from the 4 great branches can enter the 4-direction Divine Institute. Can't I enter the Sifong Divine Courtyard directly? Jiang Chen frowned. No, this is the rule. Tong Sang said. Jiang Chen heard and nodded slightly. Since this was the rule, then he would follow it. Where is the Northern Ming Courtyard? Jiang Chen asked. As he spoke, he had already stood up and was ready to go directly. 300 miles north of Qingyun Town and 100 miles away from Bega City. It is located in Mount Xingyun. Tong Sang said, I will send you there. No need. Jiang Chen frowned. The assassins of the secret pavilion are still thinking about my life. This time, I will go to the Northern Ming Courtyard in a low-key manner. I need to hide my identity. Tong Sang also understood Jiang Chen's current situation and could not help but nod. He then gave a lot of elixirs to Jiang Chen and said, Master, these elixirs are refined according to the Sifong alchemy technique. They are of high quality. Take them, they may be of use. Okay, Jiang Chen said softly, and then left the main hall. As soon as he left the hall, Jiang Chen exerted the art of deceiving heaven. His energy changed drastically. Even his appearance changed into a different person. Then, Jiang Chen quietly left through a small path at the back of the mountain. With Tong Sang and Lu Shan around, the Chuanzuan sect should be fine. Jiang Chen thought to himself and decided to be a hands-off boss for once. After leaving the Chuanzuan sect, Jiang Chen rushed all the way and arrived at Qingyun Town half a day later. This was the only way to the Northern Ming Courtyard. I heard that the Northern Ming Courtyard has started to recruit students. The recruitment requirements are too harsh. He is less than 18 years old, but his cultivation base has reached the mind state, and there are many trials and assessments. In the entire Qingyun Town, how many people can enter the Northern Ming Academy? In Qingyun Town, almost everyone is discussing the enrollment of Baiming Academy. At the same time, Jiang Chen also heard people talking about the Shengwu sect. Sai, I don't know what happened to the magnificent martial sect. Not long ago, they went to attack the Chuanzuan sect, but none of them came back. That's strange. The magnificent martial sect is stronger than the Chuanzuan sect. How could they lose to the Chuanzuan sect? It's a pity that the Shengwu sect is gone now. When Jiang Chen heard these words, the corners of his mouth involuntarily revealed a trace of a smile. Shengwu sect? It's just a cornerstone under my feet when I walk up the altar again after my rebirth, Jiang Chen said softly. Scram! Young Lord Luo is here. Suddenly, Angry shouts could be heard from the street far away. The pedestrians on the street took a detour. Their eyes were filled with dissatisfaction, but they did not dare to say a word. Even some of the Dao realm cultivators were muffled, as if they did not dare to offend young Lord Luo. Jiang Chen naturally heard it, but what did it have to do with him? Jiang Chen walked his own path on such a big street. Why should he give way? If he did not give way, would young Lord Luo not be able to walk past? Scram! After a few breaths, Jiang Chen continued to walk on the street. Behind him, there was a sound of horse hooves and an extremely arrogant shout. In this regard, Jiang Chen did not even turn his head and continued to walk on his own. You're courting death. However, the person behind him was dissatisfied. With an angry shout, he rode the spiritual horse and stepped on Jiang Chen's head. Even a real dragon does not dare to step on my head. Who gave you the courage to do that to a mere spiritual horse? Jiang Chen said softly. A beast taming rune condensed in his palm, and a beast king's aura erupted. Nay, in an instant, the spiritual horse felt the beast king's aura and was frightened. Its body trembled violently. The young man riding on the spirit horse was even careless and was shaken off. How dare you? How dare you disturb young Lord Luo's spiritual horse? Young Lord Luo, are you all right? At this moment, a large group of people rushed over from behind the young man. In the midst of their greetings, they surrounded Jiang Chen. Brat, I asked you to scram. Didn't you hear me? Young Lord Luo shouted angrily. He was not tall or handsome, but the clothes on his body were extremely luxurious. The jade pendant on his waist was carved out of a tranquil bead and was worth millions of high-grade spiritual stones. The sharp sword in his hand was emitting the brilliance of flames. It was made of flame iron and was worth millions of spiritual stones. Putting all these aside, young Lord Luo wore a total of 9 rings on his 10 fingers, and each of them was a space ring. A space ring was priceless. In the entire solitary North City, the number of people who could afford a space ring could be counted on one hand. Young Lord Luo, on the other hand, was wearing 9 of them. What the F*** CK? Tycoon! Jiang Chen was initially angry, but when he turned around and saw young Lord Luo, he could not help but widen his eyes. To be honest, ever since Jiang Chen was reborn, young Lord Luo was the richest person that he had ever seen. How dare you block my path and scare my horse? Do you want to die? At this moment, young Lord Luo's face was gloomy as he stared at Jiang Chen. Before he could finish his sentence, the group of people around him attacked Jiang Chen. Does the road belong to you? Did I scare the horse? Is my life something that you can take away? Jiang Chen curled his lips as he looked at the group of people around him. The highest cultivation among them was only at the middle level of the thought state. In Jiang Chen's eyes, such a cultivation was like an ant or a weed. Boom! In the next moment, Jiang Chen took a step forward. His genuine qi was like a raging wind, and there were ripples under his feet that spread out. Wherever the ripples passed, the people around him seemed to be severely injured, and they flew out one by one. Even young Lord Luo was shocked. He was hit by a ripple and was forced to take 3 steps back. What *T young Lord Luo? Do you think that as long as you have some money, you can become a young lord? Jiang Chen said disdainfully. What can you do to me with such strength? My surname is Luo, and my name is Young Lord. I'm not the kind of young lord that you're talking about. Young Lord Luo's face darkened. He was quite embarrassed about his name. Fortunately, he was the young lord of the Bank of the Universe. Regardless of his name or how he was addressed, he was still a young lord, so he did not care. However, young Master Luo still wanted to explain himself when someone deliberately brought it up. Your surname and name have nothing to do with me, Jiang Chen said softly. He took a step forward and walked in front of young Lord Luo. He said coldly, but what you did just now angered me. I'm the young lord of the Bank of the Universe. Young Lord Luo said in a low voice, how many people dare to talk to me like that? Quickly kneel down and apologize. Otherwise, not to mention Qingyan Town, there will be no place for you in this world. Chapter 50. The Bank of the World was in charge of the economy of the godless continent. From spirit stones to rare treasures, and even peerless weapons and cultivation techniques. In short, as long as you wanted it, the Bank of the World would definitely have it. Although this force didn't participate in the battle between sects or compete with the Martial Pavilion. Everyone in the godless continent knew that the strength and foundation of the Bank of the World couldn't be underestimated. Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. He didn't expect to meet the young master of the Bank of the World in such a small place. Now, with Jiang Chen's strength and Chuanzuan's sex foundation, once he offended young Master Luo, the consequences would be dire. But suddenly, Jiang Chen remembered that he used the deceiving heaven technique this time. Not only did he disguise himself, he even changed his aura. Even if he caused trouble outside, no one would know that it was done by Jiang Chun. So, what if it's the Bank of the World? I'm the young master of the Heavenly Temple. Jiang Chun raised his chin proudly. Young Master Luo was stunned when he heard that. He tilted his head and his mind spun. He couldn't think of which sect Heavenly Temple was. However, a sect that dared to be named Heavenly Temple must be extraordinary. And the Bank of the World did business in the world. They did all kinds of business, especially those top sects and legacy forces. Thinking of this, young Master Luo's aura couldn't help but weaken. It wasn't that young Master Luo was afraid of Jiang Chun, but he was thinking that if Heavenly Temple was strong, he might be able to make a deal with Heavenly Temple. It would be a long-term deal, and he would get a customer for the Bank of the World. Heavenly Temple, what kind of sect is it? Young Master Luo asked. His tone was slightly calmer and wasn't as harsh as before. It's a legacy force. Jiang Chun became more and more arrogant, but he was also feeling weak in his heart. This was because there was no Heavenly Temple on the godless continent. It was all made up by him. Oh? So you're from a legacy force? Young Master Luo said. Legacy forces rarely appear in the world. I've never heard of them, but I think my family's elders should have heard of them. Of course, Jiang Chun said seriously. Just as he finished speaking, two youths walked over from afar. One of them carried a long sword on his back. His expression was cold, and when he blinked, there seemed to be sword light flashing in the depths of his pupils. The other person carried a long saber on his back. He had thick eyebrows and big eyes, and a cynical smile hung on his face. The sword faction's first disciple, Yi Chong Feng, first disciple of the saber faction, Silent Void Annihilation. The surrounding crowd cried out in surprise because the identities of these two young men were not ordinary. The Sword Sect and the Saber Sect were the two strongest sects in the northern Solitary Mountain region. Even Solitary North City would find it difficult to fight against the Sword Sect and the Saber Sect. However, the people from these two sects never participated in worldly conflicts. They rarely even participated in conflicts between cultivators. However, not participating in the struggle did not mean that they were weak. On the other hand, none of the people from the Sword Sect and the Saber Sect were weak. Just like Yi Chong Feng and Silent Void Mia, they were definitely the cream of the crop among the younger generation in Solitary North City. What bad luck! At this moment, when young Master Luo saw the two of them, his face darkened, and he turned to leave. However, Silent Void Mia walked over and looked at young Master Luo with a mocking expression. He teased, lying to these country bumpkins again? Shut up, young Master Luo said coldly. Let's mind our own business. Heh, all you do is proclaim that you are the young master of the Bank of the World. All you do is lie to those ignorant people. Yi Chong Feng also walked over and frowned. He said, Don't you feel ashamed? When these words came out, Jiang Chun was stunned. He blinked his eyes, and a few black lines appeared on his forehead. So you are a liar, Jiang Chun reacted. I was wondering why the young master of the Bank of the World would appear in such a place. After thinking about it, Jiang Chun's eyes flashed coldly. He stared at young Master Luo and said coldly, Since you are not the young master of the Bank of the World, then shouldn't you give an explanation for what happened before? So what if I am not the young master of the Bank of the World? What can you do to me? Young Master Luo said solemnly. On the side, Yi Chong Kong and Silent Void Mia had weird expressions. They even blinked at Jiang Chun like they were telling Jiang Chun to leave. Of course, Jiang Chun was unhappy. How could he leave just like that? Before this, if Jiang Chun was not strong, he would have suffered a lot. Now, since young Master Luo was not the young master of the Bank of the World, Jiang Chun naturally had to settle this score. However, in the next moment, when Silent Void Mie said young Master Luo's true identity, Jiang Chun was stunned. He was unable to calm down. Although he is not the young master of the Bank of the World, but he is the heir of the 800 miles Black River. Silent Void Mie said, "Little brother, let's just forget about this. If this continues, it won't do you any good." Of course, Jiang Chun knew about the 800 miles Black River. It was a top sect comparable to White Emperor City in Song Mountain, Snow Ocean, and White Emperor City. I see. No wonder this kid kept pretending to be the young master of the Bank of the World. The Bank of the World ignored him and didn't care, Jiang Chun thought. Although the 800 miles Black River could not compete with the Bank of the World, the previous owner of the 800 miles Black River had just become a god. Although a person who had just become a god could not descend from the sky, he could descend with his godly aura. With his godly aura, it was enough to intimidate all the sects on the godless continent. However, Jiang Chun was confused. Why would the heir of the 800 miles Black River appear in such a small place? Could it be because of Northern Ming Court? So what if he is the heir of the 800 miles Black River? My master is from Sky Temple. Jiang Chun lied through his teeth. Since he had already acted cool, he would continue acting cool until he died. Furthermore, if Jiang Chun did not have any identity today, even if he was willing to let young Master Luo go, young Master Luo would not let him go. Furthermore, Jiang Chun could see that Yi Chong Feng and Silent Void Mia had a special relationship with young Master Luo. If young Master Luo really wanted to attack Jiang Chun, these two people would most likely stand on young Master Luo's side. At that time, no matter how powerful Jiang Chun was, it would be difficult for him to fight against the three of them. After all, in terms of cultivation level, young Master Luo, Yi Chong Feng, and Silent Void Mia were much higher than Jiang Chun. Young Master Luo, stop fooling around here. If you continue fooling around, I don't know when you will be able to return to the 800 miles Black River. Yi Chong Feng said mockingly. You were exiled by your father to reflect on your mistakes, but looking at you, you don't seem to have any intention of reflecting. Do I need you to care about my matters? Young Master Luo's face darkened. He glared at Jiang Chun and said, What Sky Temple? Wait for me to send someone to check. If it is fake, I will teach you a lesson. After saying that, young Master Luo turned around and walked away. It seemed like young Lord Luo was afraid of Jiang Chun before he figured out Jiang Chun's identity and the sky-reaching divine palace. Otherwise, how could such a proud and arrogant person like him leave just like that? By the time you find out, it will be too late. Jiang Chun laughed mockingly in his heart, but his expression did not change as he left. Chapter 51. For Jiang Chun, running into young Lord Luo and his companions in the Blue Cloud Town was just a small farce. Jiang Chun's only goal now was to enter the Northern Ming Hall and obtain the inheritance of a divine sense cultivator. As for young Master Luo, Jiang Chun was not afraid of him, no matter who he was. A day later, Jiang Chun walked along the road and arrived at the Northern Ming Hall. The Northern Ming Hall was located in the middle of Xingyun Mountain. It was surrounded by mountains and filled with spiritual energy. There was a faint layer of mist in the air, making it look like a paradise. At this moment, there were thousands of people in the large square outside the Northern Ming Hall. Jiang Chun stood in the crowd, squinting his eyes as if he was taking a nap, waiting for the Northern Ming Hall's entrance examination to begin. Not far away, young Master Luo, Yi Chong Feng, and Silent Void Mie stood together. These three people had extraordinary identities and were very strong. When they stood together, they were like cranes in a flock of chickens. The kid we met in Xingyun Town is also here. Yi Chong Feng saw Jiang Chun and said to young Master Luo, Do you think he can enter the Northern Ming Hall? What does that have to do with me? Young Master Luo curled his lips and said, I've already sent people to investigate the Heavenly Temple. If what he said before is false, I'll teach him a lesson. You, can't you restrain yourself a little? Silent Void Mia frowned and said, To put it nicely, you were exiled to reflect on your actions. To put it bluntly, you've been exiled from the Black River. You're not even considered a member of the Black River anymore. Bullsh asterisk T. The blood in my body is the blood of the Black River. So, what if I'm exiled? One day I'll go back. Young Master Luo's voice suddenly turned cold, as if he had a lot of resentment towards the Black River. Yi Chong Feng and Silent Void Mia did not say much about this. After all, they had heard about what young Master Luo had done in the Black River. It was hard to say that it was young Master Luo's fault. However, in the end, young Master Luo was still exiled. Don't you think it's too far to come all the way here from the Black River? Yi Chong Feng asked. What are you doing in such a small rural place? What do you think? Young Master Luo glared at Yi Chong Feng and said, Of course, I'm here for the inheritance of the divine sense, just like all of you. At this point, young Master Luo glanced at the people around him and frowned. There are quite a few acquaintances here. It seems that they're all here for the divine spiritual cultivator's inheritance. It seems like many sects have received the news. The inheritance of the divine telekinesis has appeared. Nirvana Annihilation nodded. In the past, when Biming Courtyard recruited students, it was impossible to attract so many people. Furthermore, this year, there were disciples from some large sects and even people at the level of young masters. These people had given up their identities and lived a good life in their own sections. Why did they come all the way to the Northern Ming Courtyard? Of course, it was for the inheritance of the divine psychic. The drunkard is here too. Blood-eyed is here too. At this moment, Yi Chong Feng and the other two were standing together. They scanned the crowd and saw familiar faces one after another. Among them, the young master of Drunken Wine Villa, the drunkard, and Bloody Eye of the Thousand Fantasy sect were all here. Drunken Wine Villa was very far from the Northern Ming Courtyard. It was almost out of the solitary North City. As for the Thousand Fantasy sect, it was more than 3,000 miles away from the Northern Ming Courtyard. They came all the way here as if they'll definitely get the inheritance of the divine spiritual cultivator. Young Master Luo curled his lips, but he still felt a little pressured. After all, Drunken Wine Villa and the Thousand Fantasy sect were not weaker than the Black River in terms of resources. Moreover, the drunkard and blood-eyed were not weak either. It was said that the drunkard and blood-eyed were ranked in the top 80 on the honor roll of Green Cloud. The assessment begins. At this moment, at the mountain gate of the Northern Ming Courtyard, a white-haired elder appeared. As his voice fell, the whole place fell silent. Then, a group of people lined up and walked toward the mountain gate of the Northern Ming Courtyard in an orderly manner. At the same time, at the mountain gate, an array was activated. A soft light, accompanied by a ray of starlight, rose slowly. Those who can enter the mountain gate will pass the first round of assessment. The elder's voice sounded again. He reminded, those who are over 18 years old and have not reached the spiritual state should leave as soon as possible. However, when the crowd heard this, no one left. It was because those who could come here all knew the hard and fast standards of the Northern Ming Courtyard. Since they were here, they naturally met the standards. However, there was one person whose face darkened after hearing this. And this person was Jiang Chun. Jiang Chun had already condensed 36 drops of essence blood. As long as he was willing, he could become a spiritual state cultivator. However, before he got the inheritance of the divine spiritual cultivator, Jiang Chun did not want to advance so hastily. Therefore, among the thousands of people in the square, only Jiang Chun was in the upper level of the physical state. Buzz! After 10 breaths, Jiang Chun arrived at the mountain gate. He took a step forward and was about to enter the Northern Ming Courtyard. However, the starlight above the mountain gate suddenly burst out rays of dazzling light. It actually pushed Jiang Chun back. Idiot! This is the growth ring array. It can detect your age and cultivation level. You didn't meet the standards, and you still want to get away with it? Disdainful voices rang out from all around. Jiang Chen's face turned slightly red. Young hero, you didn't meet the standards. Leave this place? The white-haired elder standing at the mountain gate said, "Don't be discouraged. You can come back next year." Must my cultivation level be in the spiritual state? Jiang Chen frowned. Can't I reach the upper level of the physical state? No, this is the rule. The white-haired elder shook his head. Haha, you still say you're the successor of the Skirich Temple. I think you're an idiot from some remote mountain. Young Master Luo's voice came from inside the mountain gate. He stared at Jiang Chun and said mockingly, Kid, I think the Skirich Temple you mentioned is just a small sect. Noisy. Jiang Chun looked coldly at the white-haired elder and said, All right, spiritual state it is. With that, Jiang Chun walked toward the mountain gate again. This scene caused the group of people to be stunned. Even the white-haired old man was stunned. You haven't reached the spiritual state yet, the white-haired elder said. However, before he could finish, everyone saw a mysterious light burst out from Jiang Chen's body. In an instant, an aura came out from Jiang Chen's body. There was a ray of light that looked like a flame dancing between his eyebrows. Spiritual state. Can I go in now? Jiang Chen glanced at the white-haired elder, then passed through the growth ring array without any obstruction and entered the Baiming courtyard. Many people stared at him. They did not expect him to break through the spiritual state with just a thought. This kid is interesting. He broke through the spiritual state in an instant. Nirvana Destruction nodded. That's just the lower level of the spiritual state. Young Master Luo pursed his lips and raised his eyebrows at Jiang Chun provocatively. I'll have plenty of time to play with you in the future. Chapter 52. In the face of young Lord Luo's provocation, Jiang Chun chose to ignore him. After a dozen breaths, when everyone had entered the mountain gate, the white-haired old man was about to speak and start the next round of assessment. However, at this moment, two youths rushed over from afar. Wait! Everyone looked over and saw a man and a woman. By the time they finished speaking, they had already rushed to the entrance of the mountain. Wow! This woman is so beautiful. Whose disciple is she? She actually has such looks. Inside the mountain gate, a group of people exclaimed as they stared at the woman at the mountain gate. As for the other person, he was ignored by everyone. Hurry up and come in. The white-haired old man did not say much, and after speaking, he turned around and led everyone into the northern bright court. At the same time, the two people who had just arrived passed through the growth ring array without any obstruction and entered the mountain gate. Jiang Chun really entered this place? I also heard it from Tong Sang. Along the way, the man and woman conversed secretly. The two of them constantly scanned the surroundings, but did not see Jiang Chun. As for Jiang Chun, he had already noticed them. His face darkened. He murmured, Why didn't you stay in the sect? Why did you come here to look for me? Jiang Chun really could not understand why Bai Fengyu and Jiang Lu would come out. Could it be that without him as their master, they could not cultivate? Miss, may I know your name? Beauty, which sect are you from? At this moment, many people wanted to strike up a conversation with Bai Fengyu. However, Bai Fengyu was very arrogant. She coldly scanned the surroundings and did not say a word. Jiang Lu, who was standing beside her, was very distressed as he softly said, Bai Fengyu, why do I feel like I don't exist when I stand beside you? I feel even less of a presence when I stand beside Master. Bai Fengyu said snappily. Although Jiang Chen's cultivation was much lower than Bai Fengyu's, Bai Fengyu always felt that she was very small and insignificant whenever she was with Jiang Chun, as though she was transparent. Fortunately, he had regained his confidence from Jiang Lu for the second test. Anyone who can climb the stairway to heaven will be considered to have passed. Not long after, the white-haired old man led the group to a flight of stairs. The staircase was very wide. From bottom to top, there were a total of 99 steps. The stairs were blue in color. They were made of blue essence stone and were covered in obscure runes. Everyone stood at the bottom of the stairs and could vaguely feel a terrifying pressure coming from above. After a few breaths of time, when someone stepped onto the stairs, rays of light erupted from the stairs. In an instant, the person standing on the stairs trembled and his face turned pale. He felt as if he was carrying 1,000 pounds of weight on his shoulders. However, to a cultivator in the realm of thought, 500 kilograms was nothing. However, this was only the first step, and there was already a 500-kilogram pressure on him. What about the 99th step? Just how terrifying was the pressure there? Boring. Bai Fengyu pouted. Such a test was simply too easy for a Dao realm cultivator like her. In the next moment, under everyone's shocked gazes, Bai Fengyu rushed up the stairs as if she was walking on flat ground. In just 3 breaths of time, she had crossed the 99th step and stood at the top. When the white-haired old man saw this, his eyes lit up. He nodded and said, "She's not even 18 years old, but she's already in the realm of thought. It seems that the Northern Ming Hall has picked up a treasure this time." Boom! Boom! Just as he finished speaking, everyone saw Jiang Chen step onto the stairs again. Zhang Lu, who had the sacred body of the Archean era, had an extremely strong physical body. No matter how much pressure was on him, his body was like a boulder and did not move at all. He was like a primordial bull charging across the stairs, ignoring the pressure on the stairs as if there was no wind. After 6 breaths of time, Zhang Lu was panting slightly, but he still stood on the 99th step without a hitch. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded. They could not believe that the two of them had passed such a difficult test so easily. If Bai Fengyu had passed it easily, it was because she had the support of her realm of thought. However, Zhang Lu, a cultivator in the lower realm of thought, had passed it so easily. This was too much of a blow. This is interesting. Young Master Luo narrowed his eyes and said, "It seems that this batch of disciples from the Northern Ming Hall have some skills. I'm getting more and more interested." "Oh, young Master Luo, don't say such things. Let's pass the test first. If you fall on the stairs, it'll be very embarrassing." Yi Changfeng chuckled. Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Changfeng took the lead and rushed out. His body was covered in sword rays, and the shadow of a sharp sword appeared under his feet. He was like an unsheathed sword, rushing out in the opposite direction. The invisible pressure on the stairs seemed to have been shattered by the sword rays around him. Behind him, silent destruction was also strong. His body was covered in sword rays, and he followed closely behind. Young Master Luo was not far behind. His body was surrounded by black water, and he looked like a walking Grim Reaper. The three of them seemed to be competing. They rushed all the way to the 99th step at the same time. At the same time, many people stepped onto the stairs. However, most of them collapsed on the 50th step, unable to withstand the pressure on the stairs. That kid can't make it up, right? At this moment, young Master Luo saw Jiang Chen. He saw Jiang Chen walking step by step. His speed was very slow, and he had only reached the 10th step. Moreover, a thin layer of sweat had appeared on Jiang Chen's forehead. He looked like he was having a hard time. I thought he was outstanding. I didn't expect him to be so difficult to even walk up the stairs. Yi Changfeng sighed. He felt that he had made a mistake. However, young Master Luo and Yi Changfeng soon noticed Jiang Chen's abnormality. This was because they could not detect a trace of true qi from Jiang Chen's body. This guy, he sealed his cultivation and only relied on his physical strength to walk up the stairs. Silent Destruction exclaimed, "Without the support of true qi, how can his physical body withstand the pressure on the stairs? He's using the pressure to train his physical body." Yi Changfeng exclaimed. However, he immediately shook his head and said, "Without the support of true qi, his physical body will be crushed by the pressure sooner or later." At this moment, Jiang Chen was thinking about something in his heart. He had indeed sealed his cultivation and wanted to use the pressure on the stairs to train his physical body. However, the effect was not very good. This was because Jiang Chen's physical body was already very strong. The pressure here did not have any effect on his physical body. However, Jiang Chen did not want to be too conspicuous. He wanted to keep a low profile. Therefore, he could only pretend that the pressure was great and walk slowly. After half an hour, those who were supposed to be eliminated had been eliminated. Those who were supposed to walk up the 99th step had also reached it. Only Jiang Chun was still on the stairs, walking slowly. If he doesn't reach it in 10 breaths, he will be eliminated. The white-haired old man looked at the time and thought that Jiang Chun would definitely be eliminated. Chapter 53. However, something unexpected happened. As soon as the white-haired old man finished his sentence, Jiang Chun felt that something was amiss. He panicked, and his feet suddenly moved at this moment. Jiang Chun stopped pretending. Like a ray of light, he rushed to the top of the stairs in an instant. What the F asterisk CK? What's going on? At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded. They did not expect that someone who looked like he was struggling would suddenly rush to the 99th step. Moreover, everyone looked at Jiang Chun. His face was not red, and his heart was not beating fast. Nothing was wrong. Even the layer of sweat on his forehead had disappeared. This guy, why does he look so familiar? Zhang Lu looked at Jiang Chun thoughtfully. As for the white-haired old man, he was a little confused. After looking at Jiang Chun for a while, he turned around and continued moving forward without saying anything. After walking past the stairs, it was the outer court of the northern main courtyard. The last round of the recruitment assessment was held here. After passing the assessment, one could become an outer court disciple of the northern main courtyard. Otherwise, one would be eliminated. You can make an exception and enter the inner court directly. The white-haired old man said to Bai Fengyu, "With your cultivation, the following assessment is nothing to you." "No." Bai Fengyu shook her head and blinked her beautiful eyes. There was a trace of doubt in her eyes. Since entering the mountain gate, Bai Fengyu had been looking for Jiang Chun. She firmly believed that with Jiang Chun's strength, he would definitely pass the assessment. However, until now, she did not even see Jiang Chun's shadow. Bai Fengyu began to suspect. Could it be that Tong Seng lied to her and Jiang Chun did not come to the northern main courtyard at all? "I'm here to look for someone. If he's not here, I won't enter the northern main courtyard," Bai Fengyu said. As soon as she said that, the white-haired old man immediately glared and shouted, "What do you think the northern main courtyard is? Are you here to behave atrociously?" "Behave atrociously? So what?" Bai Fengyu's eyes narrowed as he said, "Not to mention a mere solitary North City. Even if it's the godless continent, not many people would dare to say anything if I want to behave atrociously." "What? This woman has a great background?" Everyone was stunned as they tried to guess Bai Fengyu's identity. "Jiang Chun, keep a low profile," Zhang Lu muttered. "Jiang Chun doesn't like people who are too high profile." "Oh." Bai Fengyu nodded. Even though she was the sole successor of White Emperor City and had limitless glory outside, in front of Jiang Chun, she really didn't have any temper. Even if Jiang Chun wasn't by her side, as long as she mentioned Jiang Chun's name, Bai Fengyu would have a strange feeling in her heart. It was as if she should really listen to Jiang Chun. "But Master isn't here," Bai Fengyu said with a frown. "Maybe he's by your side?" Zhang Lu said meaningfully as he blinked his small eyes. There was a trace of a smile at the corner of his mouth. Then he raised his eyebrows at Jiang Chun, who was in disguise. This little fatty, Jiang Chun was speechless. He really didn't expect that Zhang Lu would see through his identity. However, on second thought, it was also reasonable. After all, Jiang Chun and Zhang Lu grew up together. The feelings between the two would not change because of the change in appearance. Others might not be able to detect Jiang Chun's abnormality, but Zhang Lu had already detected it. Especially Jiang Chun's mouth. There was always a trace of a wanton smile. This made Zhang Lu even more certain that this stranger in front of him was definitely Jiang Chun. White Emperor City of Tsang Mountain Snow Sea, Bai Fengyu. "Are you satisfied now?" At this moment, Bai Fengyu was also afraid of causing trouble and couldn't help but secretly transmit her voice to the white-haired old man, explaining her identity. The only successor of White Emperor City. The white-haired old man was shocked. After silently looking at Bai Fengyu, he didn't say anything else. Then, after walking for a while, the group finally arrived at the outer court of the northern main court. The outer court was already filled with a group of northern main court disciples. These people were all here to see their future junior brothers and sisters. Wow, that girl's looks are too much. How can she have such an appearance? It's not too much to say that she's devastatingly beautiful. When the group of people saw Bai Fengyu, they exclaimed in surprise. There were even people who shouted the word goddess. Fengyu, this girl is really not bad looking, Jiang Chen thought to himself. He was even more proud in his heart. Such a beautiful girl is my disciple. 17 people, excluding Bai Fengyu. The remaining 16 people will fight in pairs to determine the top 10. The white-haired old man said, "The rest will be eliminated." When these words came out, Yi Changfeng and the rest were stunned. They were even more surprised. Although the Northern Ming Court's assessment was also very strict, it had never been this strict. Last year, the Northern Ming Court recruited more than 100 new disciples. What's the situation this year? Only 10? Elder Lu, what's the situation this year? Only 10 disciples? Silent Void Mia asked. It's a little special this year, only 10. The white-haired old man, Elder Lu, glanced at the mountain behind the Northern Ming Court and said, "The dean himself gave the order, and even the 4 directions divine houses gave the order. Is it related to the inheritance of the spiritual one?" The drunkard, the young master of the drunkard mountain village, asked. When he spoke, there was a whiff of alcohol. Yes, I'm sure you all know that not long ago, the spiritual one gave a divine decree to pass down his inheritance to his descendants. Elder Lu nodded. After that, Elder Lu seemed to be unwilling to say more. He waved his hand and said, "Pick your own opponent." In Elder Lu's eyes, the result of the last assessment was already very clear. People like young Master Luo, Yi Changfeng, Silent Void Mia, the drunkard, and the Crimson I would definitely pass. The others were just there to serve as a foil. Pick any one of them, and you can enter the Northern Ming Court after the battle. Okay. Young Master Luo and the others were well aware that it was impossible to pick someone with similar strength. If they lost, they would be eliminated. At that time, being eliminated was a small matter, but losing face was a big deal. Next, young Master Luo and the others picked their opponents, and without exception, all of them won. However, young Master Luo and the others picked their opponents quickly, and the weakest ones were all picked. Naturally, the remaining ones were those who looked not too weak, but not too strong. Among them, Jiang Chen and Jiang Lu were included. "Little fatty, you're up." At this moment, the Crimson Eye from the Thousand Fantasy sect took a step forward, pointed at Jiang Lu, and said, "Hurry up, the sooner we finish, the sooner we can get this over with." Okay. Jiang Lu looked very honest. After nodding his head, he walked over. Then, the two of them exploded with genuine qi. An array of bloody light appeared in the eyes of the Crimson Eye. Boom! However, without waiting for the Crimson Eye to make a move, Jiang Lu rushed to the front of the Crimson Eye like a human-shaped Tyrannosaurus. Then, with a loud explosion, the crowd saw that the Crimson Eye did not even have time to use his most powerful eye technique before he was punched to the ground by Jiang Lu and fainted. Chapter 54. The Crimson Eye from the Thousand Fantasy sect was very famous among the younger generation. He was even ranked in the top 80 of the Green Cloud Roll. The Green Cloud Roll was the ranking of the younger generation on the Godless Continent. Only those who were under 20 years old and below the Tau state were qualified to enter the Green Cloud Roll. The Crimson Eye was on the Green Cloud Roll. However, no one expected the Crimson Eye to be knocked down by Jiang Lu with one punch. Instant kill. No way. What's wrong with this little fatty? He didn't even use any martial arts techniques, and he finished it with one punch? His physical body is too strong. Everyone was shocked. Even young Master Luo, Yi Changfeng, and Silent Void Mia were amazed. Jiang Lu gave a simple and honest smile, looking very embarrassed. He scratched his head, looked at Elder Lu, and asked, "Am I qualified?" Elder Lu was stunned for a long time before he came back to his senses and nodded. "You passed." Then, Jiang Lu smiled and stood beside Bai Fengyu. He quietly poked Bai Fengyu's arm. "What are you doing?" Bai Fengyu was confused. Let's watch Jiang Chen's performance later, Jiang Lu said softly. Master? Is he really here? Bai Fengyu frowned. She looked around, but didn't see Jiang Chen. You then? At this moment, the drunkard walked out confidently and randomly picked a person. However, the person he picked happened to be Jiang Chen. The drunkard is in the middle level of the thought state. He's about to enter the upper level of the thought state. He'll definitely win this round, young Master Luo said. He recognized the drunkard's strength. This guy will be miserable. Jiang Lu had a strange expression. He could even imagine the drunkard's ending. Little fatty, you have a good eye. That guy who claims to be the successor of the heavenly temple will definitely be beaten down by the drunkard. Young Master Luo laughed. Hearing this, Jiang Lu gave a simple and honest smile and did not explain. He couldn't tell young Master Luo that the person he said would be miserable wasn't Jiang Chen, but the drunkard. Let's begin, Elder Lu said softly, then closed his eyes. After all, in his eyes, Jiang Lu's victory over the blood-eyed one was already a surprise. And in a test, it was impossible for an accident to occur twice. He didn't need to watch to know that the drunkard would win the fight. Bang! However, in the next second, everyone only saw a blur before their eyes, as if a black and white light flashed past. With a muffled sound, the drunkard was sent flying. What? Oh my God! What did you guys just see? Cries of surprise rang out one after another. None of the people present clearly saw what had just happened. Only Jiang Lu had a smile on his face, as if he had already expected this result. Heavenly dance of brightness and darkness, it really is Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen thought. This was not the first time he had seen bright and dark sky dance. At this moment, he was even more certain that the person in front of him was Jiang Chen. Bai Fengyu blinked her beautiful eyes. When she saw the black and white light, she also reacted. This is too much. You obviously saw me, but you didn't even come over to greet me. Bai Fengyu's eyes flashed with a trace of hidden bitterness, and she glared at Jiang Chen fiercely. Jiang Chen pretended that he didn't know anything. He looked at Elder Lu with a smile and asked, Is it okay? Pass. Elder Lu nodded blankly. 2 consecutive accidents had happened today, and he was a little numb. On the side, young Master Luo's face was gloomy and ugly. He stared at Jiang Chen and suddenly felt some pressure in his heart. It was only because even he hadn't seen Jiang Chen's attack clearly. If I fight with him, I have almost no chance of winning. Young Master Luo frowned, and a trace of viciousness flashed in his eyes. The following battles were not exciting, and each of them fought until the top 10 were determined. However, Elder Lu seemed to be giving face to the Thousand Fantasy sect and Drunken Wine Villa, and also cherishing talents. He made an exception and allowed the drunkard and the blood-eyed one to enter the Northern Ming Hall as outer yard disciples. At this point, the entrance examination of the Northern Ming Hall was over. Subsequently, Elder Lu brought them to the dormitory of the new students. After explaining the rules of the Northern Ming Hall, he left. As for Bai Fengyu, she was brought to the inner yard and directly became an inner yard disciple. What are the 2 of you doing here? At this moment, in a small wooden house, Jiang Chen and Jiang Lu were assigned to stay together for a period of time. Who will teach us when you're not here? Jiang Lu muttered. It's Bai Fengyu's idea, right? Jiang Chen stared and said unhappily. Looking at Jiang Lu, he knew that he didn't have the guts to leave the Chuanzuan sect without permission. Bai Fengyu said that she wants to be your disciple. Wherever you go, she will go. Jiang Lu said weakly, she wants to look for you. I was afraid that she would encounter danger on the way, so I followed her. Hearing this, Jiang Chen was speechless. He rolled his eyes and said, Okay, since we're here, we'll cultivate here for a period of time. When I get the thing, we'll leave. Bang! Just as he finished speaking, a loud explosion suddenly sounded. Then, the door of the small wooden house Jiang Chen was in was kicked open. Smoke and dust flew everywhere, and there were even wood shavings flying towards Jiang Chen's face. What's going on? Jiang Chen frowned and stood in the same place, not moving at all. In front of him, Jiang Lu was like a boulder standing straight there. The smoke and wood shavings hit his body, making muffled sounds. Newcomer. Outside the small wooden house, a young man in brocade clothes and holding a long rod stood there with a frivolous expression. Behind him, there were 5 or 6 outer yard disciples. Newcomer. Zhangchen nodded and said, "Is there a problem?" "Of course there's a problem." The young man with the long rod smiled and stretched out his hand. "According to the rules, it's time for a newcomer to pay a protection fee." "Ah? Protection fee?" Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. He looked at Zhang Lu and asked, "What does he mean?" "He wants us to pay," Zhang Lu said. As soon as these words came out, Jiang Chen's face suddenly darkened. After his rebirth, Jiang Chen didn't lack anything except money. Jiang Chun, who was about to be born, loved money as much as his life. Want him to pay? Wasn't this touching Jiang Chen's bottom line? "Jiang Lu," Jiang Chen whispered, and a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. He said coldly, "Tell them what the consequences of collecting protection fees from me are." "You mean to beat them up?" Jiang Lu asked. When he saw Jiang Chen's cold look, he immediately shut up. Boom! The next moment, Jiang Lu rushed out, his whole body shining with golden light. When he punched, the fist turned into a strong wind, and it was like a bright sun, accompanied by a loud explosion. The young man with the long rod flew out on the spot, spilling blood along the way. Chapter 55. The Archean's sacred body was invincible. Even Jiang Chun would not have dared to compete with the Archean's sacred body in terms of physical strength before he had condensed 36 drops of blood essence. Now, under Jiang Lu's honest appearance was a body as hard as a boulder. Even a cultivator at the upper level of the thought state would find it difficult to block his punch. "Are you trying to rebel?" At that moment, the young man with the long stick was covered in blood as he struggled to get up from the ground. However, there was no trace of fear in his eyes. "Who do you think you are?" Jiang Chen looked at him coldly and touched his infinite space ring. There were less than 1,000,000 top-grade spiritual stones in it. For a moment, Jiang Chun felt that he was still very poor. If he was so poor, why would he let someone collect the protection fee? Jiang Chun would not be happy about that. "Hey, new kid, I don't care how good you are outside, but since you're in the northern Ming courtyard, you have to follow the rules." The young man with the long stick said coldly, "If you don't pay the protection fee today, I will cripple you and kick you out of the northern Ming courtyard." Jiang Chun was amused when he heard that. How many people in this world would dare to talk to him like that? Cripple? Get out of the northern Ming courtyard? Ha! Jiang Lu, I don't know what it's like to be crippled. "Show me," Jiang Chun said softly. Jiang Lu's face darkened when he heard that. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead, and he said timidly, "Me? You want me to cripple myself?" Jiang Chun almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He sighed. Jiang Lu was too honest. "Why would I want you to cripple yourself? Aren't there people in front?" Jiang Chun said angrily. "Oh." Jiang Lu nodded and smiled shyly at the young man with the long stick. "Boss said to cripple all of you." Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Lu took a step forward. He was like a human-shaped Tyrannosaurus, his whole body exuding a reddish-gold radiance. His whole body looked like it was made of gold. When he punched, a golden wind appeared, and his fist was as bright as the sun. "Don't!" The youth was frightened, but Jiang Chen only listened to Jiang Lu's words. It was impossible for him to stop this punch. Puff! In the next second, Jiang Lu's punch landed on the young man's body. With a dull thud, the young man's chest caved in completely. Even the spiritual meridians in his body were broken. His cultivation had been completely crippled. When the others saw this, they didn't dare to stay any longer. They turned around and ran. "Boss, should we chase?" Jiang Lu asked. "No need. Let them remember," Jiang Chen said. He glanced at the broken wooden door and said, "Go and get the door next door. We'll make do with it first." "Oh!" Jiang Lu nodded obediently. Bang! Not long after, the wooden door of the small wooden house next door was pulled down by Jiang Lu and then fixed on the door of Jiang Lu's small wooden house. "Are you kidding me? How can you bully people like this?" Crimson Eye's voice came from the cabin next door. He was very angry. However, he was defeated by Jianglu previously. Crimson, I was powerless in front of Jianglu and could only grumble a little. Can the two of you take it easy? As freshmen, you have to follow the rules. Young Master Luo also lived next door and saw what happened. He walked out and frowned. Although Biming Hall won't punish you for crippling a senior, what about the rest of the seniors? If they come to take revenge, can you stop them? Mind your own business, Jiang Qin said coldly. Don't think that just because you're from the 800 miles Black River, others will listen to you. Who do you think you are in my eyes? You! Young Master Luo shouted angrily. However, when he saw the golden Jianglu, he immediately shut up. This year's freshmen are a little arrogant. At this moment, a young man walked over from afar. He wore a white robe and held a folding fan in his hand. His face was delicate, but there was a hint of arrogance in his eyes. Not far away, there was a group of youths standing, but they did not come close. The fan Bai Yi. The kid with the long rod is Bai Yi's subordinate. Now that he's crippled, Bai Yi will definitely take revenge. What a pity for the two freshmen. They just entered the academy and they're going to be kicked out. There was a commotion all around. Some people even looked at Jiang Chun and Jianglu with sympathy. Young Master Luo and Crimson, I seemed to be afraid of causing trouble and had already retreated to the cabin. Boss, cripple him? Jianglu did not care who the other party was. As long as Jiang Chun said the word, he would dare to attack. However, this time, Jiang Chun waved his hand and said, "Come back. You're not his match." Jianglu heard this and his face darkened. He said with some resentment, "We haven't fought yet. How am I not his match? Are you blind? He's lower origin realm, and you're only lower origin realm. There's an entire realm between you." Jiang Chun rolled his eyes. "Have you been overconfident lately?" No. Jianglu hurriedly shook his head and obediently retreated into the cabin. Jiang Chun walked out and stood in front of Bai Yi. His eyes narrowed. "Are you here for revenge? Cripple your own cultivation and hands, and I can let you leave Northern Bright Hall alive." Bai Yi spoke softly, his expression aloof and arrogant. He opened the folding fan in his hand, and a cold light flashed through it. "Cripple your own cultivation and hands, and I can let you leave Northern Bright Hall alive." Jiang Chun arched an eyebrow and added, "Don't waste your breath. Either you nod and agree, or fight. I think you're courting death." Bai Yi was furious. He'd been in Northern Bright Hall for so many years, but this was the first time he'd met such an arrogant freshman. Boom! In the next moment, Bai Yi made his move. A strong surge of true qi exploded from his body as he waved the folding fan in his hand. Vortexes of true qi swept towards Jiang Chun, dance of brightness and darkness. Jiang Chun didn't dare be careless. After all, his opponent was an entire realm higher than him. Black and white light enveloped his body as he executed the dance of brightness and darkness. Black and white swords formed in his hands. Boom! Boom! Black and white light flashed. Under the dancing sword light, the vortexes of true qi were sliced into nothingness. 9 words of battle, swift as the wind. With a furious roar, a patch of green light appeared beneath Jiang Chen's feet, as if a fierce wind was gathering beneath his feet. He took a step forward, and as if he'd teleported, Jiang Chen appeared in front of Bai Yi before he could react. What? So fast? Normal people can't block this speed. They don't even have a chance to react. Exclamations rang out from all around. No one had expected a mere thought realm cultivator to have such strength and speed. However, Bai Yi was really strong, and he reacted quickly. When Jiang Chen showed up in front of him, the folding fan in his hand suddenly shattered, and it turned into many diamond-shaped fragments floating in the air. Chapter 56. After Bai Yi said the word "nod," rays of light bloomed from the diamond-shaped fragment. In an instant, even without Jiang Chen making a move, the rays of light condensed and turned into transparent glass, trapping Jiang Chen. At this moment, Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed and a trace of surprise flashed across his face. He did not expect that there would be a boundary master in such a small place. On the path of cultivation, there were all kinds of abilities. Some could refine pills, some could refine weapons, some could set up formations, and some could condense boundaries. In comparison, boundary masters were rarer than alchemists and weapon refiners. It was hard to find one in 10,000 people. That was because the requirements to become a boundary master were too harsh. One's mental strength had to be far beyond ordinary people. Moreover, one had to know how to set up boundaries. In his previous life, Jiang Chun had fought with many enemies. Among them, the one that gave him the most headaches were boundary masters. Fortunately, after suffering a loss at the hands of boundary masters, Jiang Chun also focused on cultivating and comprehending boundaries. Now, the barrier was nothing more than child's play to him. Can you still move in my enchantment? Ha! Bai Yi laughed wildly and stood in the same place, not making a move. He was mocking Jiang Chun, and he was sure that Jiang Chun wouldn't be able to move. However, in the next moment, the true energy in Jiang Chun's body burst out and condensed into runes beside him. The runes jumped and spun, turning into a sharp sword that hung above his head. Buzz! In an instant, the sharp sword exploded with boundless sword light, and there were even shadows of sharp swords appearing around it, like a sword formation. Under the wanton sword chi, Bai Yi's boundaries shattered in an instant. Only you know how to use boundaries? How about this sword shadow boundary? Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows. When his voice fell, he took a step forward, and the black and white sword in his hand swept across, directly sending Bai Yi flying. What are you doing? At this moment, Bai Yi exclaimed, and a trace of fear flashed across his eyes. This was because after Jiang Chun sent him flying, he did not stop. Instead, he held a sharp sword and rushed in front of him. The sharp sword that flickered with black and white radiance was like a life-reaping sickle, piercing towards his dantian. If he were to be struck, even if he did not die, he would be severely injured, and his cultivation would be destroyed. You told me to cripple my own cultivation and cripple my own hands. Now, your words have been verified, Jiang Chun said coldly. He had never been merciful to his enemies. Stop! However, before Jiang Chun's sharp sword could land, Elder Lu's voice came from afar. As soon as he finished speaking, Elder Lu stood in front of Bai Yi and released a burst of spirit energy from his palm, causing Jiang Chun to retreat. This is a battle between disciples. As an elder, you also want to interfere? Jiang Chun said in a deep voice. He has already lost. Why do you have to continue? Elder Lu frowned and said, We are all disciples of the Northern Bright Court. Why do you have to do this? What a joke! Jiang Chun said coldly. If I was not stronger than him, my cultivation and hands would have been crippled by him. If I was the one who was defeated, would you save me? Elder Lu was silent for a while after hearing Jiang Chun's words, as if he was thinking. After thinking for a while, Jiang Chun understood that if he were the one who lost, Elder Lu would not save him. There should be a limit to the sparring between disciples. Today's matter is over, Elder Lu said softly. After waving his hand, he left with Bai Yi. As Bai Yi left, he turned back to look at Jiang Chun, and a trace of contempt flashed across his eyes. With Elder Lu around, not many disciples in the outer court can touch Bai Yi. Sigh. Elder Lu's biological grandson is so well taken care of. Discussions could be heard all around, and when Jiang Chun heard it, it angered him. A backdoor entrant? Jiang Chun thought to himself. His eyes were cold as he took a deep look at Bai Yi's back. Without saying anything, he turned around and entered the wooden house. Boss, we're letting it go just like that? Zhang Lu asked with a worried expression. That guy seems to have Elder Lu's protection. After today's matter, will Elder Lu make things difficult for us? Elder Lu doesn't have the final say in the Northern Ming Hall, Jiang Chun said. Bai Yi has a backer, so can I. After saying that, Jiang Chun used the power of the contract to send a voice transmission to Bai Fengyu. Find me a few elders in the inner court to back me up. Bai Fengyu was cultivating when he suddenly heard the voice transmission. He was stunned for a moment and subconsciously asked, What's wrong? Did you suffer a loss in the outer court? Do you need me to take action? No need. He has an elder backing him up, Jiang Chen said coldly. Find me an elder, one with a higher status than Elder Lu. It's best if he can kill him with just one sentence. Okay, Bai Fengyu said. Following that, Jiang Chen cultivated in the wooden house. Other than going to the square to listen to the class every morning, he never left the house. Until 3 days later, on this day, Jiang Chen was still cultivating and thinking about how to obtain the inheritance of a divine spiritual sense user. However, suddenly, the newly repaired wooden door was kicked open again. Kid, let's see how you're going to survive today. Bai Yi stood outside the wooden house with an arrogant face. Beside him was an inner court disciple. Obviously, Bai Yi couldn't defeat Jiang Chen, and it called for a helper. Low-level Dao realm? Jiang Chen ignored Bai Yi. After sizing up the inner court disciple, he sent a voice transmission to Bai Fengyu. In less than 5 breaths' time, they saw Bai Fengyu flying over. Her body flickered, and she stood beside Jiang Chen. Beat him up! At this moment, Jiang Chen didn't say a word. His 3 words shocked Bai Fengyu as he could feel Jiang Chen's fiery anger. Fengyu? Who is he to you? However, before Bai Fengyu could make a move, the inner court disciple suddenly said with a smile, I think there must be a misunderstanding here. Lin Lai, he's my master. Bai Fengyu remembered that Jiang Chen had concealed his identity and quickly changed his words. He's my younger brother. My younger brother, your ass. Jiang Chen's heart was stuffy. His anger had yet to dissipate, and he was angered by Bai Fengyu again. However, Jiang Chen didn't want to be calculative. After all, if his identity was exposed, the secret pavilion might come here. At that time, it would be troublesome. So he's your younger brother. I said it was a misunderstanding. The inner court disciple smiled and cupped his hands towards Jiang Chen. Brother, it's all a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? This is a misunderstanding? Jiang Chen said coldly as he pointed at the broken wooden door with a trace of coldness in his eyes. Pa! Just as Jiang Chen finished speaking, he saw the inner court disciple slap Bai Yi's face. This slap was very strong, and he was caught off guard. Half of White Shirt's face swelled up. Chapter 57. Senior brother Lin Lai. Bai Yi was dumbfounded, completely unable to understand the situation. In the future, if you dare to bully Bai Fengyu's brother again, do you believe that I will break your leg? Lin Lai shouted angrily. Then, a smile appeared on his face as he looked at Bai Fengyu and asked, Fengyu, do you have time to discuss cultivation with me? No time, scram. Bai Fengyu angrily rebuked. Then, a gentle smile appeared on her face as she asked Jiang Chen, Are you all right? I'm fine. Jiang Chen shook his head as he looked at Bai Fengyu with a strange expression. Then, he looked at Lin Lai and asked, What's the situation between you two? Brother, I am one of Fengyu's pursuers. Lin Lai did not hide his admiration for Bai Fengyu as he walked to Jiang Chen's side and took out a bunch of elixirs. He smiled and said, In the future, can I ask brother to put in a few good words for me in front of Fengyu? Oh! Jiang Chen was relieved. With Bai Fengyu's beauty, no matter where she went, she would be admired by tens of thousands of people. At the side, he was in a mess. Even in his dreams, he did not expect that the helper he invited would be turned around. Bai Yi was speechless and was filled with resentment. He looked deeply at Jiang Chen and said coldly, Do you only know how to stand behind a woman? What kind of man are you? If it wasn't for Elder Lu, you would be a cripple now, Jiang Chen said in disdain. Then his eyebrows twitched as he mocked. Why? Are you envious? If you have the ability, then find a woman too. When these words came out, Bai Yi was stunned for a moment. He did not expect Jiang Chen to be so shameless. Even that inner courtyard disciple was startled by this. Bai Fengyu was indifferent as she knew Jiang Chen's strength. Even if she did not come today, nothing would happen to Jiang Chen. However, Bai Fengyu also knew that Jiang Chen did not want to reveal his identity. Thus, he was more low-key than before. It's fine, you can go back. Jiang Chen waved his hand and looked at Bai Yi. He smiled and said, The next time you come looking for trouble, You won't be so lucky. Next time, I'll definitely cripple you, Bai Yi said coldly. After saying that, Bai Yi turned around and left. A sinister look flashed in his eyes. That inner academy disciple stayed behind. After chatting with Jiang Chen for a while, he left. How are you doing in the inner yard? Jiang Chen asked. They're just a bunch of stinky men. By phone you frowned and pouted. When are we leaving this place? Those people from the inner yard are looking at me with dirty eyes. I'll stay here for a while longer. Once I get what I want, I'll leave. Jiang Chen smiled and said, just bear with it. Besides, you can't blame them. Who asked you to be so beautiful? When by phone you heard this, a trace of hidden bitterness appeared in his eyes. Yes, she was so beautiful, but was it useful? You don't seem to care much about me. The great elder of the inner yard wants to accept me as his disciple. By phone you said, didn't you want me to find a backer? How about the great elder of the inner yard? It's fine as long as he's stronger than Elder Lu. Jiang Chen said. He glanced at Bai Feng Yu and reminded her, you can't just take anyone as your master. You're already my disciple. If you take someone else as your master, humph. When these words came out, Bai Feng Yu couldn't help but roll her eyes. She was speechless, not taking the great elder as his master, but wanting the great elder to be his backer? Wasn't this a little too difficult? However, Jiang Chen didn't care about this. He waved his hand and said, go back. I'm going to cultivate. Oh! Bai Feng Yu's face was filled with bitterness. In her heart, she was thinking that Jiang Chen hadn't taught her for a long time. Why did this master feel like a hands-off shopkeeper? He only took in disciples and didn't teach them. After that, Bai Feng Yu left. Jiang Chen continued to cultivate in the small wooden hut. However, Jiang Chen wasn't cultivating his realm now. Instead, he was cultivating some martial techniques. Before he obtained the inheritance of a spiritual perception, Jiang Chen didn't want to raise his realm. After all, what he wanted to do was to reach the strongest in every realm. Otherwise, with Jiang Chen's talent, his current realm would have long surpassed the Dao realm. Many martial techniques are rusty, Jiang Chen said softly. Sitting cross-legged on the small wooden bed, all kinds of martial techniques flashed through his mind. Among them, there was no lack of martial techniques that surpassed the heaven tier. However, with Jiang Chen's current cultivation, he couldn't display martial techniques that surpassed the heaven tier at all. As for martial techniques like the heavenly dance of light and dark, 9 words of battle, Jiang Chen didn't want to display them too much. After all, these 2 martial techniques were seen by others before. If he used them too frequently and was detected by others, people from the secret pavilion would definitely come knocking on his door. By then, even if the Northern Brilliance Institute wanted to protect him, it would be impossible to defend himself against the assassins of the secret pavilion. The heavenly imperious body art, this martial technique, is suitable for Jiang Lu. The Ice Emperor scriptures, I can give them to Bai Feng Yu. The Great Dao Pill scriptures and the Sacred Formation technique can be given to Tong Sang and Lu Shan. Meanwhile, Jiang Chen's mind was constantly reviewing the martial techniques that he knew. He even selected the martial techniques that were suitable for the people around him. Even for Mo Xingtian, Jiang Chen had prepared the Dusk Demon God Succession martial technique for him. However, Jiang Chen still felt that there were too few people around him. He had many successions and many peerless techniques. He wanted to pass them down and establish his own faction, allowing the reverent sect to regain its former glory. Pill Dao, formations, I'll leave them to Tong Sang and Lu Shan. Barriers, weapon refinement, talismans. I still need to find someone to inherit them. Otherwise, it would be too troublesome if I had to do everything myself, Jiang Chen mumbled. Dong! Dong! A day later, a bell rang in the outer court. It was a gathering of the outer court disciples. What's going on? A gathering order? Something big happened in the outer court? I've been in the Northern Ming Hall for 3 years, but this is the first time I've heard a gathering order. The outer court disciples were puzzled. Not long after, they all gathered in the square of the outer court. Jiang Chen and Jiang Lu stood at the back of the crowd, keeping a low profile. Beside them, the Blood Eye, Yi Changfeng, and the others stood silently as well. It was obvious that no matter how good they were outside, they were still keeping a low profile in the Northern Ming Hall to avoid being taken advantage of. After all, they were all new students now. "Where's young Master Luo?" Yi Changfeng looked around and realized that young Master Luo was not here. When Silent Destruction heard this, he frowned and said, "I think his cousin is here." When he said this, Yi Changfeng's expression changed slightly. He said softly, "If his cousin is here, then the Northern Ming Hall is going to be lively." Yi Changfeng glanced at Jiang Chun with an odd look while he was speaking, but he didn't say anything. Jiang Chun noticed this and could not help but be curious. Who is young Master Luo's cousin? Could it be that young Master Luo's cousin is here to pick on me? Chapter 58. Only Yi Changfeng and Silent Void Mian knew who young Master Luo's cousin was. However, they did not care about this matter and would not spread it around. However, Yi Changfeng and Silent Void Mia both knew that young Master Luo and Jiang Chun had a grudge against each other. Now that young Master Luo's cousin was here, would he fight with Jiang Chun? The 4 Great Academies will be holding the 4 Great Academies ranking tournament in 3 days. The reason I've gathered you all here today is to select 10 people to participate in the 4 Great Academies ranking tournament. Elder Lu stood at the front of the crowd, his voice loud like a bell. As soon as he said this, many of the outer court disciples' faces were filled with excitement. The Northern Ming, Southern Emperor, Eastern Li, and Western Snow colleges were the sub-colleges of the 4 Directions Divine Colleges. Every 3 years, the 4 Directions Divine Colleges would order the disciples of the 4 colleges to spar and be ranked. If one could get a good ranking in the 4 Directions ranking tournament, not only would the 4 colleges reward them with treasures, but the 4 Directions Divine Colleges would also reward them with special items. If one could get into the top 3 of the 4 Directions ranking tournament, they could even enter the 4 Directions Divine Colleges to cultivate. This was an opportunity for the disciples of the 4 colleges, a chance for them to leap over the Dragon's Gate. Once they entered the 4 Directions Divine Colleges and became a disciple, it meant that they would have endless cultivation resources and a high status. On the Godless Continent, the 4 Directions Divine Colleges were ranked 10th among the many colleges. As long as one became a disciple of the 4 Directions Divine Colleges, they would be respected no matter where they went. Even the top sects would treat the disciples of the 4 Directions Divine Colleges with respect. However, Elder Lu had also said that only 10 people could participate in the 4 Directions ranking tournament. There were so many outer court disciples, it was too difficult to be one of the 10. Us new students definitely have no chance. Sigh, these older students have been cultivating for longer than us, and their realms are higher than ours. How can we compete with them? A few disciples who had just entered the Northern Ming College sighed, their hearts filled with resentment. However, there was no such thing as fairness in this world. If they wanted to blame someone, they could only blame themselves for being born late and cultivating late. Their realms were not as high as others. However, among the new students, there were a few who were full of confidence. For example, Yi Changfeng, Silent Destruction, and even the Blood Eye who was defeated by Jiang Lu. Although they were also new students, in terms of strength and realm, they were not inferior to these older students. Of course, they were definitely incomparable to the inner court disciples. However, when compared to these outer court disciples, they were still quite strong. Next, I will begin the registration process. If you have any objections, you can voice them out, Elder Lu said. After that, Elder Lu coughed softly and began to sign up. First by E. Elder Lu said. Once those words were spoken, the group of outer court disciples were all speechless. After all, Bai Yi was Elder Lu's relative, and Elder Lu had always taken good care of Bai Yi. Now, no one was surprised that Bai Yi was able to occupy his spot. They only felt that Elder Lu was too brazen in using his connections. Second, Chiu Feng, Elder Lu continued. This time, no one said anything. This was because Chiu Feng had been in the Northern Bright Hall for 3 years, and his strength was recognized as the strongest among the outer disciples. Third, Muli, the fourth one, Qin Linhai. Elder Lu called out 4 names in a row, and no one present had any objections. When he called out the 5th name, some people were dissatisfied and voiced their objections on the spot. 5th, young Lord Luo. At that moment, many people frowned. Someone even said directly, Elder Lu, isn't it inappropriate to let a new student participate in the 4 Directions ranking competition? Does he have the strength? Many people voiced their opinions. How could a group of older students allow a new student to occupy a spot? If anyone has any objections, you can come up and fight with young Lord Luo. If you win, you can replace young Lord Luo, Elder Lu said as he asked the people to make way for him. Then, young Lord Luo walked over from afar with an arrogant look on his face. Beside him was a young man in a long, golden robe. Who's not convinced? After a few breaths, young Lord Luo stood on the open ground and swept his gaze across the crowd. When he saw Jiang Chun at the back of the crowd, he could not help but raise his eyebrows, and a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. Childish, Jiang Chun curled his lips. Naturally, he did not take young Lord Luo's provocation seriously. However, Jiang Chun was somewhat interested in the young man beside young Lord Luo. This was because Jiang Chun felt a trace of a special aura from the young man. However, he could not recall what it was at that moment. I'll go. At the same time, among the outer court disciples, an older disciple who had been in the sect for 3 years walked out. Bang! Bang! Immediately, the battle between the 2 of them began. However, after a few breaths, young Lord Luo struck out with his palm. It was like a black stone tablet that directly sent his opponent flying. Young Lord Luo wins, Elder Lu announced. At that moment, many people shut up. This was because they could see that although young Lord Luo had just entered the Northern Ming Hall, his strength was stronger than the average older student. Moreover, young Lord Luo had just broken through to the upper level of the thought state. 6th, Yi Chong Feng. 7th, Silent Destruction. 8th, Crimson Eye. 9th, Jiang Lu. Next, Elder Lu continued to sign up. Every one of them was a new student. As a result, there were naturally people who were not convinced and went up to challenge them one by one. However, Yi Chong Feng and the rest were disciples of large sects and were very strong. These outer court disciples of the Northern Ming Hall were naturally no match for them. Last, Chun Jiang, Elder Lu said as he swept his gaze across the crowd and looked at Jiang Chun, who was at the back of the crowd. Chun Jiang was the pseudonym Jiang Chun used after disguising himself. Him? Is he qualified to represent the Northern Ming Hall in the ranking tournament of the 4 Directions? Young Lord Luo said with a look of disdain. It seemed that ever since he had broken through to the upper level of the thought state, he had become more confident in himself. I don't agree either. Bai Yi also said. He already had a grudge against Jiang Chun. How could he allow Jiang Chun to participate in the ranking tournament of the 4 Directions? I think it's quite good. However, at that moment, from the back of the mountain, a light voice was heard. After this voice was heard, Elder Lu immediately nodded and said, It's him. No objections. Why? Why? Everyone was stunned, and they were even more furious. Previously, they could still voice their opinions and fight with those who were dissatisfied. However, when it came to Jiang Chun, they could not even voice their opinions. Because this is the order of the Inner Yard Great Elder, Elder Lu said in a low voice. He was even more confused. What was the relationship between Jiang Chun and the Great Elder? How could an outer court freshman attract the attention of the Inner Yard Great Elder? Moreover, the Great Elder had personally spoken. The relationship between them, I don't want to go. However, Jiang Chun shook his head and refused. It's a waste of time. What? What are you talking about? Are you crazy? Chapter 59. Everyone was dumbfounded. They could not believe that Jiang Chun had actually rejected it. Many people wanted to participate in the 4 Directions ranking tournament, but unfortunately, the quota was limited. Now, Jiang Chun had been personally recognized by the First Elder, but he had rejected it. Chun Jiang, don't mess around. Participating in the Four Directions ranking tournament is beneficial to you. If you can get a good ranking, the Northern Light Hall will reward you. Elder Lu said in a deep voice. Moreover, this time, the first elder has personally named you. You can't refuse. To be able to participate in the Four Directions ranking tournament was an honor for everyone. Even if they did not get a ranking, it was enough. However, Jiangchen had his own ideas. If he participated in the Four Directions ranking tournament with Jiangchen's strength, he could naturally get a good ranking, even the first place. However, doing so might expose Jiangchen's identity. Jiangchen was not afraid of fighting openly, but he was afraid of being stabbed in the back. Especially when facing the secret pavilion, Jiangchen was now having a headache. At that time, if his identity was exposed, Jiangchen's situation would be dangerous. At that time, even if he got first place, entered the Four Directions divine halls, and even obtained the inheritance of a divine spiritual cultivator, so what? He might lose his life. So what was the use of these things? You have no room to refuse, unless you withdraw from the Northern Light Hall. Elder Lu said coldly. As soon as these words came out, Jiangchen could not help but frown. He was quite unhappy in his heart. If he withdrew from the Northern Light Hall, it meant that everything he had done before would be in vain. All right, I'll participate. After thinking for a while, Jiangchen reluctantly agreed. Of course, Jiangchen had also thought about it. At most, he would participate and fight a few rounds. As long as he did not use his real strength, no one would find out. 3 days later, gather here, Elder Lu said, and then dispersed. When the meeting was over, Jiangchen went back to the log cabin. Jiang Lu was standing beside him, not saying a word. Although Jiang Lu was honest, he was also shrewd and knew what Jiangchen was thinking. Jiangchen, I'm afraid I'll have to leave the Four Directions ranking tournament to you, said Jiangchen. Leave it to me? What do you mean? Jiang Lu asked with a puzzled look. First place, of course, Jiangchen said snappily. I can't expose myself. Otherwise, a mere Four Directions ranking competition is nothing. Hearing this, Jiangchen secretly nodded. In his heart, he was also very clear that with Jiangchen's strength, getting first place was not as simple as eating. However, Jiang Lu was also depressed and couldn't help but ask, even if you did, would the people from the hidden pavilion see through your identity? Without using the heavenly dance of brightness and darkness and the 9 words of battle, who would know that Jiangchen is Jiangchen? It's better to be safe than sorry. Jiangchen sighed. You haven't experienced death, nor have you experienced despair. You don't understand what it feels like. It's like taking 1 step into heaven and 1 step into hell. The current me will no longer joke around with my life. Once upon a time, Jiangchen, as the godly monarch, had thought that this world, this firmament, belonged to him. He was invincible. However, it wasn't until the moment he split open the heavens that he realized that this so-called invincibility was nothing more than a joke. Faced with the sudden encirclement of 36 traitorous overgods, Jiangchen had sunk into despair and fallen from heaven to hell. From then on, Jiangchen understood that he could joke around with anything but his own life. Even if there was the slightest difference, Jiangchen would still treat it seriously. Get first place, enter the Four Directions divine houses, and then obtain the heritage of a divine spiritual sense, Jiangchen said. Can you do it? That? I'm afraid it'll be very difficult, Jiang Lu said weakly. I'm only in the Will realm, and there'll definitely be Origin realm or even Dao realm cultivators participating this time. What can I use to fight for first place? Don't worry about that, Jiangchen said. Since only the outer courtyard disciples of the 4 superhouses are participating, there won't be any Dao realm cultivators. But even if there aren't any Dao realm cultivators, there'll still be Origin realm cultivators. Jiang Lu smiled bitterly. Origin realm cultivators have their true chi merged into one. How am I supposed to fight them? Take it and study it yourself? Jiangchen didn't say much and handed the worldly tyrant body scripture to Jiang Lu. This cultivation technique, as its name suggested, was quite domineering. Once successfully cultivated, The might of one's physical body could trample the earth and dominate the heavens. Coupled with Jianglu's sacred Archean body, it was enough for him to sweep through everything with his physical strength. Although time was a little tight, since he had just started cultivating, as long as he cultivated a little, Jianglu had a chance of getting first place with his strength. "What about you? Aren't you going to make a move?" Jianglu asked. "Of course I'm going to," Jiang Chun said softly. "It depends on the situation. If anything happens, it won't be too late for me to make a move." After that, Jiang Chun didn't say anything else. He closed his eyes and rested, doing nothing. After all, before he obtained the heritage of a divine spiritual sense, Jiang Chun wouldn't continue cultivating. His cultivation remained at the lower level of the will realm. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. In the early morning of the third day, Elder Lu called Jiang Chun and the others and set off for the South Emperor Courtyard. This year's ranking tournament of the Four Directions was held in the South Emperor Courtyard. The distance between the South Emperor Courtyard and the North Ming Courtyard was more than 3,000 miles. Fortunately, the North Ming Courtyard had Pegasi mounts, which were several times faster than spiritual horses. The distance of 3,000 miles was covered in South Emperor Courtyard in less than half a day on Pegasi. The South Emperor Courtyard is the strongest among the four courtyards. If nothing goes wrong, the South Emperor Courtyard should get first place in this year's ranking tournament of the Four Directions, Elder Lu said. "Elder Lu, you can't say that. With us here, the South Emperor Courtyard might not get first place," young Lord Luo said confidently. "As far as I know, the strongest among the outer courtyard disciples of the South Emperor Courtyard has reached the upper level of the Origin Realm. He's only one step away from the Tao Realm." Elder Lu sighed. "It'll be good enough if one of the 10 of you can get into the top 10. Young Lord Luo and the others were rather helpless when they saw Elder Lu's lack of confidence in their hearts. So what if the South Emperor Courtyard was strong? Before they fought, the outcome was still undecided. "Elder Lu, long time no see. Your complexion is still the same as before, healthy and spirited." At this moment, an old man walked towards them. This person was the South Emperor Courtyard's outer courtyard Grand Elder, Jiomozhan. His cultivation was profound and had reached the upper level of the Tao realm. Beside him was a young man who was looking at Jiang Chun and the others with disdain. "Elder Lu hasn't changed. The disciples of the North Ming Courtyard haven't changed either. They still look so weak," the young man said disdainfully. Young Lord Luo and the others were enraged when they heard this. "What did you say? Suppressing you is as easy as lifting my hand." Young Lord Luo shouted angrily. "Kid, don't be so rude. What will happen to your face when you're defeated by us?" Crimson Eye said. However, when the young man heard this, he snorted and shrugged his shoulders indifferently. "I hope you can enter the top 10. Chapter 60. Elder Lu, the Four Directions ranking tournament is about to begin. "This way, please." Jiomozhan smiled and gestured for them to enter. He then led Elder Lu and the others to the training field of the South Emperor Courtyard. When everyone arrived at the martial arts field, there were already 4 arenas that had been raised and were surrounded by people. There were seats in all 4 directions of the training field. Those from the North Light Courtyard were arranged to sit in the northern seats. Silence reigned both inside and outside the training field. No one spoke. This was because the Four Directions ranking tournament had strict rules. Both the participants and the spectators had to remain silent to avoid disturbing the other participants. This year, the South Emperor Courtyard is honored to host the Four Directions ranking tournament. The most outstanding outer courtyard disciples of the 4 courtyards will exchange pointers here. I hope everyone will display their true strength at the time, but remember not to kill anyone. Jiomozhan, the host of this year's Four Directions ranking tournament, stood in one of the arenas and slowly explained the rules. After that, the representatives of each courtyard went out to draw lots to determine the order of the competition and their opponents. Half an hour later, when everything was ready, the Four Directions ranking tournament began. Tuoba Chungran of the Eastleigh Courtyard. Jiang Chun received a number plate with some information about his opponent written on it. His name, identity, and even his opponent's cultivation. Damn, what kind of luck do you have? Your first opponent is Tuoba Chingran. Jiang Lu glanced at Jiang Chen's number plate and was speechless. Tuoba Chingran's reputation was quite resounding. He was a young expert on the honor roll. He was ranked above the Blood Eye. His cultivation had even reached the lower level of the Origin realm. What does that have to do with me? Just fight, Jiang Chun said softly. I'll just let him have a few moves and pretend to be defeated. Then I'll be done. That's true. Jiang Lu nodded. However, Jiang Lu's face fell when he saw his own number plate. He smiled wryly. Boss, I'm afraid I won't be able to take first place. What do you mean? Jiang Chun asked. Look. Jiang Lu placed the serial number in front of Jiang Chun with an awkward expression. Upper Origin Realm. 9th on the Proclamation of Azure Sky. 3rd among the outer disciples of the South Emperor Courtyard. Jiang Chun rolled his eyes. He was speechless. He had thought that he was unlucky enough to get Tuoba Chingran as his opponent. But seeing Jiang Lu as his opponent, Jiang Chun couldn't help but feel that Jiang Lu's luck was really bad. Let's fight first. If we can't win, I'll think of something else, Jiang Chun said softly. That being said, Jiang Chun also knew that no matter how strong Jiang Lu was, with his sacred body of Archean, it would be difficult for him to compete with a person who ranked 9th on the honor roll of Azure Cloud. After all, the gap between their cultivation levels was too great. Of course, if Jiang Lu had cultivated the worldly tyrant body scripture earlier, he might have had a chance to defeat his opponent. But the key point was that Jiang Lu had only practiced the heaven and earth tyrant body scripture for 3 days. What use was that? It's starting. North Ming Courtyard's Blood Pupil versus South Emperor Courtyard's Illusionist. At that moment, the first battle had begun. However, the battle only lasted for a dozen breaths before Blood Pupil was defeated. Blood Pupil was an expert in ocular techniques, which was also a type of illusion. Unfortunately, his opponent was highly skilled in illusion. From the moment Blood Pupil stepped into the ring, he was already under the illusion. From the beginning to the end, Blood Pupil didn't even have a chance to attack. He was trapped in the illusion. Jiang Lu, if you encounter an illusionist in the future, you have to be careful. Jiang Chun said, although your physical body is strong, your mental strength is your weakness. Every illusionist has a strong mental strength. Jiang Lu nodded. After that, a few more battles took place. After half an hour, it was young Lord Luo's turn to fight in North Ming Courtyard. I'll win for North Ming Courtyard first. Young Lord Luo was quite confident. He was the second person from North Ming Courtyard to fight. Since Blood Pupil, who was the first to fight, had lost, he naturally had to win to save some face for North Ming Courtyard. Moreover, his opponent was of the same cultivation level as him. Young Lord Luo was confident that he could defeat his opponent. However, when the battle started, young Lord Luo's face fell. That was because his opponent was a boundary master. In just one exchange, young Lord Luo was trapped in the boundary and couldn't move. Then, a storm roared in the boundary and drowned him. He was defeated. He was so confident, but he was defeated in one move. Jiang Chun curled his lips and said to Jiang Lu, "Did you see that? Don't be blindly confident in the future. He's a bad example." Jiang Lu nodded obediently again. Next, one battle after another continued. Half a day later, it was Jiang Lu's turn. At this moment, Jiang Chen's expression turned serious. When he saw Jiang Lu's opponent, his face darkened. This was because Jiang Chun could see at a glance that Jiang Lu's opponent's cultivation level was at the lower level of the Tao realm. Now, his opponent had suppressed his cultivation level. He suppressed his cultivation level, but his foundation is still there. I'm afraid Jiang Lu is going to lose. Jiang Chun sighed. He didn't expect the South Emperor Courtyard to be so shameless in order to win. One had to know that the 4 courtyards had a clear rule that anyone who entered the Tao realm had to enter the inner courtyard and become an inner courtyard disciple. Inner courtyard disciples couldn't participate in the 4 directions ranking tournament. The Four Directions ranking tournament also had a clear rule that those who surpassed the origin realm couldn't participate. In the end, Jianglu's battle ended. He was no match for his opponent and was crushed. "Boss, I feel like something's wrong." Jianglu walked down from the arena with a sullen face. How can an origin realm cultivator have such strong true qi? And his true qi seems to have a trace of spiritual power. Nonsense. Your opponent is a Tao realm cultivator. Zhang Chun said softly. It's fine. Winning and losing is common. If you fight in the same realm, not many people are your match. What? Tao realm? The South Emperor courtyard is so shameless. Jianglu was furious. He had been very puzzled before. With his strength and physical strength, how could he be crushed? Even if he was defeated, he should have some room to fight back. However, Jianglu had been at a disadvantage since he walked onto the arena, until he was knocked to the ground by a palm. "Boss, I lost." Then the first place of the Four Directions ranking tournament. Jianglu said softly, helpless. The Four Directions ranking tournament was very simple. The loser was eliminated, and the winner participated in the next round. Jianglu was already defeated, so he couldn't fight again. First place must be obtained. Zhang Chen's eyes narrowed. The inheritance of a spiritual sense is most likely in the Four Directions divine court. But, boss, didn't you say you didn't want to fight? Jianglu frowned. Not wanting to fight doesn't mean I can't. Zhang Chen said, you've lost, so I can only do it myself. That you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.